And then the Hamburglar has to be the end boss of every level. He's the big core of the McDonald's game.
Just give me Fry Guy options with multi-directional, spread fires of French fries.
And the whole premise lies around them trying to get the parts to fix the ice cream machine.
Oh, jeez.
I think Dude Togo would be proud.
I'm sorry, Ronald. Your ice cream machine parts are on another stage.
Indeed. Indeed.
Shoot the core, cast.
Welcome to Shoot the Corecast, the official companion podcast to the RF Generation Shmup Club, or as my mom used to call it, you still doing that Shmuck Up Club? This is a family-friendly shmup-themed podcast that likes to enjoy our shooting time with a pint of Zinlon's Ale. I'm Addicted, also known as Addicted to Shmups, and with me as always is
MetalFRO, also known as Game Boy Guru. And if you would like to connect with the podcast, you can do so in a number of ways. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at ShootCoreCast. You can follow me directly there at Game Boy Guru. We are also now on Blue Sky Social, and you can check us out there. Just search for Shoot the Corecast. It's shootthecorecast.bsky.social if you want to be technical. We have our Linktree page where you can check out all the related links and feeds. That'll direct you to everywhere you can check out the podcast. linktr.ee/shootthecorecast. If you would, please follow, rate, subscribe, etc. on whatever your podcast platform is, or write a review. And if you write a review, then we'll feature you on the episode. We'll read the review on the episode, I should say. And then you could join our Discord, which is linked from our Linktree page. And then you can join us for a playthrough or talk about shmups in general and get involved with the podcast. And also, I do stream the Shmup Club Game of the Month every month. I'm on Twitch and YouTube. So you can check me out, Guru Game Boy on Twitch or Game Boy Guru on YouTube.
So, let's start off with our question of the month. What game mechanic typically associated with Euro shmups or Euro STGs would you like to eliminate forever if you had the chance? DDL says, forced damage. Good thing he didn't put emotional damage.
Emotional damage. Yeah.
I've had some shmups cause me that too. That's Gradius 3 arcade mode.
Image fight.
Oh jeez, yeah.
Bearded Son of Nell says, is eliminating Euro shmups an option? Halfway joking.
Oh jeez, I'll talk about one here and later on, but it mentioned it was like inspired by all these Japanese STGs. Like, cool. Played it and like, wait a second, what is this? And I'll talk about what this is in a bit. I'm sure someone's going to mention it, but let's move on to Mari. Inertia. Oh yes, inertia. Nothing like having the ship move forward, wondering if you got stick drift or it's just the game.
It's stick drift in the spacecraft, right?
Well, some of this stuff you wonder, and it's like, is this initial D or where am I going? Yeah, it's not Joy-Con drift here, right? Joy-Con drift, and then you get the initial G drift. We should have like a drifting scale. You've got your Europe shmup on like the left end, In the middle, you've got Joy-Con drift, and at the very far right, you have Initial D.
Initial D? More like Inertia D.
Oh, jeez. All right, stop running in the 90s and let's get on with this.
Viz said, auto-fire rates that are slower than mashing, but also prevent you from mashing.
Oh, yes, those are quite a... But there's some Japanese STGs that have that as well.
Yeah.
Wasn't that... what was that one? Desert Storm 2, or what was that one? It's not a bad game, but it was fun. We covered it, a couple years ago, where Desert Storm wasn't the end of it all and came back for Desert Storm 2. I'm trying to remember.
Gridseeker.
Gridseeker. Didn't that have that type of auto fire?
Yeah, it does have a sort of funky auto fire thing. Yeah.
Well, you can fire, but you can't fire too fast because only a certain number of bullets appear on the screen. I guess you could sort of say this, and isn't it 42 that way as well? Well, you can only have a certain number of bullets on the screen. The game physically, yeah, so... Oh, boy. Now I'm going to talk about emotional damage. I'm starting to hear bells and whistles. Let's move on.
Huh.
The named boss says a health bar that only matters if you don't get super shredded by contact, since inertia would have been catastrophic collateral damage in real life universal laws of physics if removed. Yeah, that's another thing too. When you sort of get that propulsion, and some of the action games have that too, where you're firing and then you're moving forward as you're attacking instead of being stopped and play. Inertia in general has a limited scope in games, and just keep it out of shmups. This is not like one of those, you got peanut butter in my chocolate, you got chocolate in my peanut butter things. This is a, you got asparagus in my peanut butter. Get it the heck out of here.
Asparagus. One of these things is not like the others.
Indeed. Someone out there's like, I like asparagus with peanut butter. To you, I apologize, good sir or madam.
Yes. Well, More Salty says, Extreme Bullet Sponge Zako.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Japanese SCGs can have that as well, but Euroshops tend to have more of a things like that. I guess it's sort of in the line. Some lanes are similar to what you get with a LRPG or JRPG, where it's like, oh look, we'll double the hit points and turn them blue. There we go. You know, it's like a color palette change. It's the same thing. Color palette change plus double the hit points. There you go.
Yeah. This one I can feel, because a game like a shooting game should be a type of power fantasy. And if you're going in and you're barely able to take down the basic enemies with, a reasonable weapon, it's not a good recipe for a game that is going to feel exciting to play.
You know, for some reason, I sort of think of, if it requires, it's sort of like cleaning, right? If it requires you to break out a magic eraser and some bleach on there, you're not going to have a good time. And I sort of feel along with these games too. If it's gonna make you work for it, you're never really gonna engage the player, unless you get those Dark Souls people. Like, this game doesn't tell you anything. He kills me every 5 seconds. Give me more. There's a certain masochist that it appeals to for those type of stuff, but for most people, yes, I agree.
Right.
Pony Trigon says, I agree with inertia. One of my biggest gripes with most Euro shmups. Also, when almost every enemy fires like an enemy in Xevious, the shots are almost impossible to dodge. Or Xevious, I guess we leave it on there, but with the pronunciation. But yes, inertia again, and definitely with the sort of sniping on it. 1942 was very similar with that as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to fire where you're going to be, so that way I hit you.
Yep. Corkman77 says, I'll say underpowered weapons. I don't want to feel like I'm shooting tin cans with a BB gun. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Be careful, kid. Just shoot your eye out.
Yes.
Overdrone says, definitely inertia above all else, but bullet spun Zako and weird auto fire rates are follow close behind. But inertia is a real game killer in my opinion. Yeah, we'll get more on this later.
Drake Tungsten said, can't say that I've played many shmup games with inertia. Unavoidable enemy fire is pretty annoying, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a game where... I guess you say Ghana Blade had a little bit of that, right? Unless you really knew it was coming. In Stage 3 with the fire that shoots out, I get what they were going for. But if you're going to speed up the stage and all of a sudden don't give you... The game tells you before, it's like, danger, danger, and shows you warnings. This time, it just speeds up and all of a sudden you get flame pillars shooting out. I thought that part was cheap.
Sure.
So, I agree with the unavoidable enemy fire. Unless you know exactly where it is ahead of time, it's there. You almost need the precognition.
Yep.
Mark MSX gives us the laundry list here. Inertia, force hits, bad level design, boring bosses, underpowered attacks.
Yes. Mark cheating slightly by pretty much naming off all of his Euro shmup nitpicks.
Well, it sounds like a bad thing for, it's sort of like a Captain Planet. By your crappiness combined, we don't more of a Euro shmup.
Oh, that's good. Schlarp said, I guess this lands under bad level design, but branching paths with dead ends feels very Euro to me. Xenon 2 Mega Blast compensates that by adding another Euro design trick, flying towards the bottom edge to slowly scroll backwards.
What was it, the game that we played when we did our 3 DOS? One of them was had a little bit of that. It was definitely an Amiga release that came out for the PC. What was wasn't like I keep on calling it RIM 9000. That's not right. It's
you're talking about Tubular Worlds.
Yes, yep. That had a little bit of that too. We were there, but that was sort of funny because if you had enough shields, you just like clip through stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, it's sort of dead, but you got enough shields, so you're just going to randomly fly over to this spot. Right. You'll just reappear back where you should be. Yeah, that felt a little Euro shmup to me, at least in the first couple stages, but after that, I think it branched out pretty well.
Yep.
Eat Electric Death. Very nice. That sounds like you could get a very good indie game going out with that title. Says inertia, lack of iframes, bullet spongy enemies, which are all things that Tyrian does, but somehow still ends up being a good game. That is true. Tyrian, though, I think compensates with the regenerating shields. If it didn't have the regenerating shields, the lack of iframes would become a lot more annoying.
Oh, most definitely. A Roguish Ham said, unavoidable damage. And by that, I mean it feels like a lot of them allow you to take multiple hits, but then design the levels so that you can't avoid taking them regardless.
Yeah, it almost sounds like we should start calling that the Rocky effect. You start taking unavoidable hits, but you still get through.
Adrian!
Alright, Sly, let's move on. Balta says, inertia has never worked and never will.
Colossal Cedric also said inertia, except when it's melted with some LD feature. And I didn't get clarification as what that meant.
I'm not sure either. Oh, he puts examples below.
Yeah, waterfalls, streams, or sticking enemies. Oh, okay, yeah, so like maybe level design is what LD means.
This is one of the problems of working with technology. You think it's some sort of acronym for everything in here. And you just get lost in there. Cass Bologna says, health bar. Yeah, I think that Tyrian is an exception, but there are a lot of them where you get a health bar. And I think it's a little interesting, too, with Ghana Blade, because Ghana Blade has a health bar, but that's more of a tribute to what you get from like a Crisis Force or a late Famicom STG. with you sort of have you definitely have a health bar that you can upgrade, but you also have your auto bomb, which sort of acts as a shield in the game. It's definitely different. So, but I could definitely see, a health bar where and say take a certain number of hits is very Euro shmuppy. I think we had something similar within Overkill, right? Was that Overkill the one that had it? And then technically the shield bar or health bar was the same thing in Tubular Worlds.
Yeah, Overkill was really bad in that regard because it had that typical Euro design where you have no iframes, and so if you're touching a bullet or an enemy or scenery,
it could kill it
and
really
you don't
quickly.
move away, it can kill you very, very quickly just because you don't have any grace period.
Yep, and then all of a sudden Sinead O'Connor comes on and says, "Where did you learn to fly?"
Yeah. Zazan Zeni said, inertia. Many shmups with Euro shmup design but zero inertia like Ginga Force are much more fun because the hindrance is not the shopping or weird health systems. Inertia hinders the frame-by-frame fun. Who thought moving on ice 24/7 is a good idea?
You know, well, it works for America's Funniest Home Videos. I don't think it works here.
Right.
Okay, Mikhail Kroder says, I would say almost no known Euro shmup design element is bad by itself, save for Bullet Sponge Zaku. But the way it's implemented fits or doesn't fit into the context of the overall game is typically what makes it bad. Yeah, I would say by itself they don't, but like together with the aforementioned Captain Planet, it definitely can add up. A single strike by itself does not make a bad game. Agreed.
Right. Venu Shmup said, inertia and undodgeable patterns.
That's pretty much me playing on undodgeable patterns is me playing Toho on the hardest difficulty.
Same.
Mommy's Best Game says player health bars, non-instant death, plus big player collision box. Yeah, big player collision box is something that can really get any STG, and it really depends upon what that style of game you're going for. But I still remember the huge hitboxes, among other things, when we played Odomedius.
Yep. Spider's STG says, indentured servitude economies. Having to grind your way out of the debt of an underpowered ship, as opposed to the snowball effect of good play rewarding the player.
Oh, he doesn't like Area 88, does he?
This I found very eloquently worded, and it's something that I hadn't really considered at this level before, but there's definitely, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that, because it's one of the things that gives you momentum in a well-designed game where doing well presents you with rewards. Now, in some contexts, that reward is rank by making the game harder, therefore providing you a greater challenge to overcome. In other ways, it is fulfilling that power fantasy by allowing you to have overpowered weapons and be able to mow stuff down, even if it's just temporary, and sort of giving you that motivation to sort of keep going and see how far you can get. So yeah, I can kind of see that.
Frozen Metal says, many shots required to kill even popcorn enemies. Yeah, the bullet sponge effect is definitely real in some games. Popcorn should take a couple shots to kill at most. They shouldn't take a full focus shot in order to kill them.
Right. Naval says, health bar from both sides.
It reminds me of that, the Angry Video Nerd episode where he's playing the Empire Strikes Back, or Super Empire Strikes Back, and he's fighting the Wampa, and the first boss, and the health bar goes all the way out past the TV.
Right.
Andrew Fisher says, speed-ups. Yeah, speed-ups can be nice. They can be helpful, especially when you've got something that's slow to start with, like in anything that ends in IUS from Konami, right? Proteus, Gradius, or Gladius. There's many different pronunciations, but when it comes to certain games, they can become an overhindrance. I'm looking at you, Rock On. We'll maybe cover that in our best of the Kosoge games. But that game, if you collect enough power-ups, I think you can go faster than the speed of light. In fact, I think you've seen Spaceballs, right?
Oh, yeah.
You remember when they engaged ludicrous speed? I think that's based upon a fully powered-up ship in Rock On.
Yep. Alvin says, inertia, damage sponges, and big player hurt box.
Definitely. All those three together are definitely a bad time. Ruve the Second says, using the same enemy pattern, I often see the same enemy appear and moving at the same path, and they're doing it way too often. Very little variation on fighting enemy. They take most inspiration from 1945, the original one. They're not playing shmup enough. Yeah, that's another thing that we see a lot too, is the enemy just blindly charges in, and you don't get that. But you can go the other way too, like with 1942 and the aim shots, where the enemy knows where you're going to be beforehand. You need a good balance and variation in the ways that they attack players, right? And I think that I don't know why I want to call him Mad Dog, but he may like that nickname. But Bogcock,
sure,
has a very, very good explanation about keeping the player engaged and what you should be doing. Is it should have a rhythm, right? You should go from your popcorn to start things out to get you a little powered up, and then it should escalate into some more of the higher up the popcorn tier, and then you fight maybe a mid boss, and then you go back to popcorn. It should be constantly switching things up so that way the player stays engaged. If you got the same thing coming at you all the time, it's going to get a little boring. I think the only game that could have got away with that for the most part is Galaga, Galaxian, and the original Space Invaders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're not a proto shmup, then I don't think you can get away with that.
And finally, Darius Schmupper says, inertia is the worst. I knew inertia was going to be a heavy hitter on this list, but I'm not going to say surprised, but we definitely had a lot of people trumpeting the unavoidable damage and underpowered shots.
Yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, I think those two are my big ones. Unavoidable damage and underpowered an underpowered ship or craft. I'm not going to defend inertia because I don't think it's the best idea ever, but I also think if a game is designed well enough around it, it can be an okay thing or something that is not a big obstacle. But yeah, like I said earlier, shooting games are supposed to be a kind of power fantasy, and not being able to destroy popcorn enemies with one or two shots, or being shot at constantly and having to take and basically tank a bunch of damage just because of the way the game is designed, it doesn't feel good. And it's something that I think was a design element of its time, but I think it's one of those things that I am not eager to see developers return to unless they can find a way to do it creatively or make it interesting in some way. So it's an element that I think I'm pretty glad that most developers have moved away from. What about for yourself?
I think I'm going to hold the hand of Darius Rucker here, or Darius Schmupper, and say Inertia. And I was playing I forget the exact name of the game, but it looked pretty cool. And it said it was inspired by this. It has a little bit of a Euro shmup look and or Amiga look, and maybe that should clue me in a bit. And it said, "Oh yeah, it plays like Gradius." And then I started playing, and I said, "Wait a second, I feel like things are not working here." And then I realized it has inertia. I can't do this. I can't focus on here as I'm constantly moving forward. It's sort of like trying to play Street Fighter where some of the buttons aren't working or controls. I know that Mark MSX had an entire video on this where he went into the arcade and said, if you're going to charge people money for this, you can't have broken stick. And I feel the same way too. You can't have a broken gameplay. It's it's like trying to do Hadoukens, but you've only got light punch. It's like you're just not going to get very far here. So yeah, one by itself doesn't really do a lot, but I would say that inertia is probably one of the biggest that contributes to this. Iframes is probably close second for me, but you can overcome that if you have good game design. But inertia by itself and just constantly having to deal with that Joy-Con drift is, or in some cases initial D drift is just not acceptable. There are way too many good games to play.
Yeah, agreed.
Speaking of which, if any of you is suffering from Joy-Con drift, don't forget Nintendo replaces those for free. If you're suffering from inertia, well, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to play a different game.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on from the Euro STG to the Japanese STG. The other thing I say that sort of bothers me, it's not really Euro STGs, I guess, but just like European games in general. I don't know what it is, but they're all very water averse. It's like water will hurt you. Water will kill you. Stay away from water in video games.
Right.
Well, especially that Blaster Master 2 that kit was developed. I forget who developed that, but in that game, water will hurt you. Water's your enemy. Alright, so Espluta 2. I had a chance to play a little bit of this, and I did a little bit of routing on stage 3, but didn't get too far. Unfortunately, I got stuck between between Espluta 2, Tyrian, and then all of a sudden Hades 2 came out and sucked away any time I had.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have just had so little time that I don't think I've touched Espluta in a month. And that's sad, but the reality is most of my weekends have been busy, and that's not changing here for a little bit. Excuse me, because, well, this coming weekend, we've got Mother's Day, and I think the next weekend might be the first time that I have a weekend where I have nothing scheduled. But then the following weekend, I got stuff going on, and the weekend after that, I'm going to be traveling. So it's I'm going to have to figure out a way to get in a little bit more time with the game, because I feel like I'm allowing 2024 to slip away without making any progress.
Definitely don't try playing on the handheld mode unless you have one of those Game Boy micro magnifying lenses with a light on it. It is so darn hard to see those bullets on that tiny screen.
Yeah, you do okay if you play in Tate mode, which I've got a flip grip I can do with the OG model, but not a great control method for that. So I did have a little stand that I set up my Switch on, and I can use my 8BitDo wireless stick with that. But again, it's not the best option. So I definitely need to put some more time into it.
Yeah, well, you know what you need to do? You got a projector, right? Just go down to your local Five Below, get one of those inflatable projection screens, set it up, and there you go.
Huh.
You'll be able to see the bullets if they're on the side of a house.
Yeah, there you go.
I hear that works wonders for geriatric Danmaku.
There you go.
Yeah, so unfortunately there isn't too much here. It is a great game. It just seems that this time of year everyone is busy doing stuff or needs stuff done, and the same goes for me. I haven't had a lot of time to play, and what time I have had, I've been focusing on this month's game or playing Hades 2. So we shall return.
Yes, we shall.
Well, let's move on to the news. Several STG projects were announced during Shooter Fest in April, including XR Arcadia versions of Air Galay, Fixate, and Cambria Sword, as well as a partnership between City Connection and G-Rev to bring forward Under Defeat and Mamoru-kun Course to modern platforms. Among other announcements, Mamoru-kun Curse in particular will include new music by the original composer, a revised story mode, a 16:9 widescreen mode, and content that was previously DLC. So there we go. If you can find XR Arcadia, or don't mind paying $15,000, I forget what it is, but it seems about right. It's you can try these out.
Yep. Sairyo wasn't done with Doronpachi Saidao Joe after beating Imbachi on the 360 version. That has now been accomplished on a real arcade cabinet, which automatically grants Sairyo a world record in the game on Type A Expert.
Very nice. A demo for Chromacell from developer Ben James is available for download on itch.io. Chromacell is a horizontal shooter with early 90s style pixel graphics. Very nice.
Never Awake is getting DLC this summer, titled Flashback. It's apparently based upon an arcade version of the game that is no longer in development, likely due to the difficulty of adapting a twin-stick game to a standard arcade control panel setup.
Yeah, I think that Never Awake is something that would need like a spinner control, like Forgotten Worlds, in order to translate over correctly. Or it's just with your standard 3-button Janus setup, I just don't see how that could get fully ported over unless you had AUX controls like a spinner. And I definitely don't think they're going to go with a rotary stick for this one. So yeah, it just makes sense. So hopefully we can play this on the podcast soon.
Yeah.
City Connection has now officially announced the release of the Mega Drive P47 sequel, apparently known as P47-2. I think I could have named that one. No word on a release date yet.
The next game from Happy Meal and City Connection's final series will be Final Formation, set for a Switch and PC release later this year. That will be a revival of the Formation Z or Formation Z property, similar to what they did with Final Exarian.
If Ronald McDonald is not a playable character on this, I'm going to be disappointed.
I think license issues might preclude that.
No, that would be cool. I like to see, that's what we should do on here. Mascot STG. You've got Grimace. Grimace is a big, heavy bomber on there. You've got ended up having your Ronald McDonald, which is your very fast ship on there, but then go like a what was that one? The Spitfire? No, the one in Strikers 1945 too. The one that you looked at Ron, and just caught on fire.
Oh yeah, it was the one that was based on balsa wood construction.
Balsa wood, yeah. That's what Ronald McDonald drives, and then Birdie is just sort of this playable character who's by herself. She just flies, but has a really small hitbox, or like a special in Grega. And we're getting into some weird STG territory here, but let's make it a McDonald's STG.
Huh. Right.
And then the Hamburglar has to be the end boss of every level. He's the big core of the McDonald's game.
Just give me Fry Guy options with
There you go.
multi-directional, spread fires of French fries.
And the whole premise lies around them trying to get the parts to fix the ice cream machine.
Oh, jeez.
I think Dude Togo would be proud.
I'm sorry, Ronald. Your ice cream machine parts are on another stage.
Indeed. Indeed. Hey, if Treasure can make a good game out of McDonald's or Ronald McDonald, why can't we?
Exactly.
PTSD games, no. PSCD Games has a Kickstarter campaign for a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive version of Cyber Mission, a scat-like horizontal shooter with flying protagonists. Now keep in mind, we mean scat the game, please. No one write that we're talking about literal scat flying around. Let's keep it family friendly, folks.
And this released on Steam, I want to say, either earlier this year or toward the end of last year. And I know reception was kind of mixed, but it's kind of cool that they're doing a Mega Drive version, and maybe that's kind of what they were going for, was that style in the first place. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how that turns out.
I'm sure it will be better than Operation Galuga.
Bullet Hell Jam 5 is happening on itch.io from May 10th through the 26th, hosted by Harman Kambaj, Wayfair Games, and RC. Devs can submit games for consideration, and then they'll be scored based on a number of categories.
Very nice. You think that that if there was a case of beer that Zune would enter?
Oh, if that was the prize?
Yeah, you think you'd enter? We just all of a sudden get 3 Toho games.
I don't know. A case of beer seems like a light day for him. It might have to be a pallet of beer.
Yeah, that's true. I can just see someone creates a manga. A manga with Zune. There, this is the official one. Each. Oh wow, I could just see this is going to go bad several ways. I'm not going to say it. All right, moving on. Space Pants Games is creating a Resogun-like shooter for the Sega Genesis. It's still in early development, but could be promising. Now, the Resogun style goes back to Defender or Stargate, and that style has been aped out a lot more than you expect, right? There was that homebrew for the TurboGrafx 16, right? That had that style. I forget what the Atlantean?
Atlantean, yeah.
And then they made a Christmas version of it. Christmas Atlantean. So, I mean, it's pretty popular gameplay. Was Defender Eugene Jarvis? Was that?
It was.
Am I thinking it was? Okay. And that guy's still being copied to this day.
The official re-release of Rainbow Cotton will include a fan translation done by Burn Trends and Derek Pascarella, which they are apparently aware of and working with the publishers to accomplish.
Now, this came out, was it yesterday or was it today? I don't know, but I saw it popped up on Steam.
Yeah, I think it might be out by now, yeah.
Well, yeah, I know it's definitely out. It came out this week, but I don't know if it was just today that it released or what, but it's for sale now. No, it looks like it's $18 for right now until May 15th.
Huh.
Oh, it was released 2 days on, 2 days ago on the 8th.
Oh, nice.
It looks like you're going to need a really, holy smokes, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. Oh, there we go. You need that ray tracing there for the cotton. All right, moving on. Brooke is releasing a new piece of arcade stick. Brooke is releasing a new piece of arcade stick hardware that will support PS3, 4, 5, the original Xbox 360 and Xbox Series, Switch, PC, NES, SNES, and 64. It's easier to just say almost everything. and more. This arcade, the arcade stick that supports everything. And didn't the? I mean, isn't this sort of like a taking this from the same parts of the X Arcade? The X Arcade did that way back in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
Right.
but this is sort of like Brook has always had two boards. They had the Universal Fighting Board, which was in modern platforms, USB based, and then they've had their Retro Board, which you could wire up, and then it would allow you to connect dongles via an RJ45 type connector that would then allow you to connect to some older consoles. And so you would wire up a connector that would plug into a GameCube, for example, with just a standard Cat5 type cable, and then, wire that into the RJ45 end, which would plug into the stick. And there, you could do configurations where you could sort of marry the boards together with a ribbon cable so that you could have both boards in the same housing, and then you would have your USB connection to go to your modern consoles or PC, and then your other jack to hook up your special connections for. But I like the fact that this simplifies it and pretty much puts all that functionality in one board, and then updates it so that it supports even the newest consoles.
Gotcha. Okay.
So while this is not shooting game specific news in the strictest sense, there are enough of us who are stick players to where this would definitely be of interest.
Gotcha. Okay.
With the forthcoming closure of the Xbox 360 stores store in July, here are the digital release shooters that will be likely lost when this occurs. And that is 1942 Joint Strike, Choplifter HD, Raystorm HD, Shooting Love 2000X, Under Defeat HD, Zeit, Odomedius Excellent, Dodonpachi Saidao Joe, and then also Muchi Muchi Pork and Pink Sweets.
Didn't the Joint Strike come out in that Capcom collection? Or am I thinking of something different?
I'm not sure about that.
There was that Capcom collection for the 360, and I'm trying to remember if that was included or not.
It's possible. Now, something to remember, I guess Under Defeat HD we already know is getting a modern release through City Connection, and so most likely the version that was available on the 360 is going to be the basis for the new version. Shooting Love 2000X did get a physical release, and while it's not dirt cheap, it can be had that way. Raystorm HD, I mean, the better version of Raystorm is going to be in the Rays arcade collection. I've never heard of Zeit, so I'm not sure what that is.
I did look, and the Capcom Digital Collection that came off the 360 does have 1942 Joint Strike, so it did get a physical. It also has Commando 3. Remember, if anyone remembers that, Wolf of the Battlefield.
Okay. Good to know. Now, SDOJ and Muchi Muchi Pork Pink Sweets, those both got physicals, but of course those were Japan-only releases. Muchi Muchi Pork Pink Sweets is, going for $100 plus these days. I haven't priced SDOJ lately, but I'm sure it's not cheap.
Are these really? I didn't check the prices on these. Are these like $15 on the Xbox Arcade, or what's the going rates for these?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll have to look them up because we know 150 north of 150 for Pink Sweets and Muchi Pork, and I can imagine SDOJ is probably going to be at least 200 plus. So if they're lesser than that, then I think that's a pretty good deal to get.
Yeah. The other thing to consider with Odomedius Excellent specifically is while the game did get a nice deluxe physical version in North America that has a larger box and a bonus soundtrack CD and art book and stuff, there's a lot of DLC. And we talked about that on our Odomedius Excellent episode, which you should go listen to if you haven't heard it already. And so there's a lot of additional content for that game that will probably be lost to time, because I'm sure most of that is not going to be carried forward and made available on the Xbox Marketplace going forward. I don't know if Odomedius Excellent is backwards compatible or not, but I'm guessing it's probably not.
I just looked at SDOJ, and people are selling physical copies for $120. That's a lot cheaper than expected.
Yeah, that's better than I was thinking. It's still not great, but it's not completely terrible.
It's sort of bad that we're like, oh, it's less than 200. That's not bad for SDG.
Yeah.
Hold is a new shooter from Naps Games that has a Famicom or a Nintendo Entertainment System look and sound to it, but uses an RPG-like progression system for upgrading your ship. So, give it a shot. It's out now on Steam.
The April update for Nintendo Switch Online included Super R-Type.
Those poor people. I'm saying Super R-Type. It's like, oh, look, we have checkpoints. We have slowdown. It's almost like the Super Nintendo trifecta of doom there. We've got the Euro Shmup recipe for making a disaster, and then we've got the Super Nintendo. You add a little bit of slowdown, you add some checkpoints on here, you just need some reverb.
Oh, no, they removed the checkpoints.
Oh,
so
that's
now you
right,
have to do the whole stage at
right.
once.
That's right. Oh, jeez. That sounds about right. How can we, now that we're bringing this home, how can we make this better? Let's remove anything that made this game good in the first place.
Right.
Sounds good. Let's ship it. Alright. So, let's see here. A remake of Flying Shark for the Amiga 500 is in the works, and demo is available now. Well, I guess, we've got all these sharks on here. It wouldn't surprise me if they came with Baby Shark DLC. Please don't.
Oh, jeez.
But it wouldn't surprise me. Same, no, thank you.
Pretty cool, though, that someone's doing that at this point.
Wait till you get the ZX Spectrum port.
Wow. The first 3 games in the TC Strikers series are free on Steam.
I don't think I've heard of this series.
Yeah, this would be for the meme shmup enjoyers out there. I want to say TC Strikers 2 might have been featured in Shmup Slam 5, if I remember correctly. Loosely inspired by the Strikers 1945 games, but sort of have their own vibe.
So, what is a meme STG? Are we just talking about zeroing?
No, meme STG and the fact that these, well, let's just say that the characters in the game make it very meme-worthy. I'll leave it at that, and you'll
okay, so
you'll have to look it up.
It basically goes. What's the muscle games? Shoot, name escapes me.
Choaniki?
It's Choaniki, but even more NSFW.
Not NSFW, just bizarre.
Ah, all right. So it goes in sort of like a Panic direction. Panic for the Sega CD.
No.
We'll drop all the deep cuts. No? Oh.
No, it's all the characters in the game are excessively large.
Oh, okay.
So
there we go. Yeah. All right. Red Art Games is releasing physical PS4 version of Rogue Aces, which plays similar to Luftreses and some other similar games where you fly back and forth horizontally in an area to complete mission objectives and shoot down enemy target. Pre-order now.
Beep Shop is going to be offering a Mega Drive soundtrack remix CD of Cyvarior Delta music, similar to the previous released PC Engine remix version.
As long as this is brought to the US by Dispatch Games, I'm okay.
Oh, jeez.
The Evercade team will be releasing the Evercade Tate Mode grip, specifically designed for the Evercade EXP and XPR models to allow for easier play with Evercade Artados that offer Tate support. Now, if anyone hasn't seen this, and if anyone's seen the movie poster for MASH, the original movie poster for MASH, it almost looks like just the fingers there, right, with the hand. It looks like someone looked at that and said, I like MASH, I like that movie. That would be a great product. Let's release some rubberized fingers and a little grip at the end, and we'll call it the Tate Mode.
Oh, jeez.
Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like two fingers pointing downwards, and then the hand. They cut off the top part of the hand, and you just stick it in there. I mean, it definitely works, but I could see somebody sort of laughing at it with like 2 popsicle sticks and some duct tape.
Yep.
Maybe cutting. Okay, when it comes to America, it'll be 2 popsicle sticks and half a red Solo cup with some duct tape.
Wow. Imagine Software is releasing the Epix Collection handheld, which will compile 6 Atari Lynx games from Epix Software, including Blue Lightning and Shmups Gates of Zendokon and Zarler Mercenary. No release date yet, but this is confirmed for Nintendo Switch.
I don't understand any of that, but it looks fun to say.
Well, I'm looking forward to this because, I mean, it's Atari Lynx games on the Nintendo Switch. So you're going to be playing these nice 16-bit chunky pixel games on this relatively large screen for what the Switch is. And this is basically the 2 commercially relevant shooters that came out on the Switch on the Lynx during its commercial life, plus Blue Lightning, which is a sort of afterburner-like.
Yeah, that's that one that was sort of like the technical showpiece at the time, right? Because it had all the scaling on there.
Yep.
Although, if you really want chunky pixels across a large screen, try the Mr. Core.
That's
that
true.
That will give you chunky pixels. And especially if you take that inflatable 5 Below projector screen and then project that. Mr. on a projector. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. But this is cool that they're doing this.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. This is something that is definitely very esoteric, but it's a good type of esoteric.
Yeah.
Terra Galactica is a horizontal shooter in development for the Game Boy Advance that was never finished. However, the demo ROM has now been released by free from the devs, which includes 2 full stages and 3 boss fights. I have not had a chance to try this out, have you?
I haven't, no. I saw the announcement on, it was either a Shmups Reddit or the Shmups Retro Gamers group on Facebook. And someone chimed in when I said, oh, this sounds cool. They said, yeah, keep in mind, it's a demo. You know, it's just an unfinished game. And yeah, I realized that, but, you know, it'd still be cool to check out. Hotego's Namco System 1 core for the Mr. FPGA has been expanded to add new games, including the bizarre STG Pistol Daimyo no Daiboken, Dragon Spirit, Blast Off, and Dangerous Seed.
Oh, yeah. This is the System 1 core has games like Dragon Spirit, it has Splatterhouse, definitely a lot of good games. I believe it's for patrons only, right?
I don't know about that yet. I believe all of these games have now been released on Arcade Archives as well.
Okay.
But it's always good to have more options.
Great. And considering how people are starting to clone the Mr. board, and we may have a $99 Mr., that's a heck of a deal.
Absolutely.
Kanzaki has released Gigantic Blast for free on itch.io. It is a vertical Danmaku shooter that isn't overly difficult, but the focus is on scoring. It uses AI art and has a heavy emphasis on the big plot. Oh boy.
Yeah, credit to Drake Tungsten for the big plot bit there. But
I almost read that in sort of like in the line of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark at the end there. We've got top men working on it. Who? Top men. Big plot.
I'm thinking of the Monty Python Quest for the Holy Grail. Huge tracts of land. As little time as I've had to game here lately, I did take a crack at this because it was a free download. And it looked like a decent little quick blast through a Danmaku shooter. And it's not too bad. I would say it's a relatively easy 1cc because the game is pretty forgiving. And so, yeah, definitely a focus on scoring there. But, a fun time for a freebie game.
There are worse ways to waste your time. Well, not waste your time, to spend your time.
Yep.
If I wanted to waste my time, I'd try and make progress on Gradius 3 Arcade.
Oh, yes. Bad Computer 3 has released version 1.0 of the Sega Master System shooter Blast Arena. It can be downloaded from itch.io. The developer is also creating a full shmup for the system called Frontier Force with a tentative 2024 release planned.
Very nice. I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think there's enough going on for the Sega Master System for the homebrew scene. I think it definitely needs some more games. The Genesis is definitely sort of like where it's at. It used to be the NES, and that's sort of fallen a little bit by the wayside. There's still a lot more games coming out, but Genesis is probably where most of the games are developed right now. I don't think that we'll ever see a huge amount of Saturn stuff, and there has been some Dreamcast stuff, but nothing in the way of this Genesis. I think that 68,000 that powers it, just that in the some people call it robot farts, but I definitely like the synth of the Genesis.
Yeah. Genesis does.
Oh no, we're gonna have people requesting songs for their.
You can't do this on the Master System. Genesis does.
Jeez. Oh, speaking of which, Hotego was doing. It was just announced this week, right? He was doing System 18, wasn't it? With Jackson's Moonwalker. There's something else on there.
Yeah, System 18. Oh, I'm gonna have to look this up now because I don't remember off the top of my head.
Can't do that on Nintendo. Yeah.
Yeah, the System 18 also had. I guess Desert Breaker might be. Yeah, no real shmups.
But it has doesn't it have was it Crackdown? I think it's Crackdown on there that a lot of people like.
No. System 18 is Blockseed, Shadow Dancer, Alien Storm, Moonwalker, okay. Laser Ghost, Clutch Hitter, DD Crew, Wally, Wo, Sagase, and Desert Breaker. Yeah.
Yeah, Shadow Dancer that I was thinking of. Yeah. Okay. Still, that's pretty good.
Right.
And you know what? I think that the reason why a lot of people are drawn to the Genesis, besides its unique sound, has to be the blast processing.
That could be.
Broke Studio will be working with Cat Hui. So bad. Cat Hui. With Neko Hui. Hawaii? Is it Hawaii? Probably Hawaii. Broke Studio will be working with Cat Hawaii Trading, aka Kaikekuki Cat, to publish Changeable Guardian Estique on NES and Famicom. I feel like I butchered that very badly, but that's alright. It's almost like people are saying, like me asking me to say the word Lake Titicaca several times over, so.
Yeah, we've mentioned this on the podcast before in the news segment, but yeah, this is an exciting development because the game is very, very polished looking, and certainly something that I think will excite a lot of shooter fans who also like the Famicom and the NES.
There are definitely a lot of them. That's the one thing that I think I still see a lot of is STGs being made. I don't think we see a lot of platformers or anything anymore, especially JRPGs or LRPGs. It's STGs.
Yeah.
All right. Stomach Shooter from developer Heso Rider is in development. It's a vertical Danmaku with very cartoony style. It's set inside a stomach with your character fighting off things that would cause stomach irritation. A Stage 1 demo is available now. Game will currently focus on boss battles. Finally, someone realized that we needed more shmups with Stu Goodbuddy.
Yeah, I was already thinking that. Whale Captain released on Steam April 9th from Tyrannosaurus Games. Previously a mobile-only title, this horizontal shooter has a distinctive art style and whimsical fantasy setting.
Now, if the final boss isn't Moby Dick and your first mate isn't Starbucks, no sale for me. M2 isn't ready to announce what's coming next in the Shot Triggers line quite yet, so they took to social media to ask fans to wait a little longer to find out. Well, there we go. They do pull the John Luke Picard and say, you may test that assumption at your convenience.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like they could be behind schedule based on what they have done with their Toho Plan Arcade Garage releases so far and sort of the cadence that they had begun to set. But I'm hopeful that it means that they're just busy working on lots of stuff.
M2 is one of those people that could take 6 months without saying anything, and people will be like, oh yeah, they're still working on it.
Yeah.
They are the quintessential followers of Miyamoto's principle. A good game can be delayed and delayed and delayed, but a bad game. Well, what was it? Something like a good game. A game can be delayed and become good, but a rushed or hurried game is bad forever. Something similar to that.
Something like that.
I'm sure someone's got the exact quote hung up in there right next to their cat poster of him in there, but so I'm sure I'll get it right someday.
A new Toho fan game, Toho Lensed Night Sky, released on Steam April 26th from developer and publisher Fireland. A demo is available to check out as well, and the game follows your traditional Toho vertical STG formula.
You know, I was about to say it seems like we haven't hit our quota of Toho fan games, but something that actually follows the STG formula is pretty rare. Usually it's like, oh, here's your Toho T simulator. Here's your Toho Power Wash simulator. Here's your crossover with SimCity and Toho, because why not? But something that's actually STG, that's pretty rare.
Yeah, at this point it is, but it's not unprecedented.
True.
I want to say Game Engineer from the Discord has already played and 1cc'd this.
Dude, do you even shmup? Dude, I'm already done with this. Oh, GG to you, sir. You're ahead of the game there. That's okay, because there'll be a new Toho fan game coming out in the next 4 hours. Well, I think they, as I said, they have to hit a quota. I think they have to hit at least 25 per month.
Something like that.
Yeah. Zakichi's next game will be titled Vironex, and will be a horizontal STG. This release on Steam, though a date is not set. Development appears to be pretty far along, however. Was this the one that they were doing a demo, or sort of like an early access game that he did? Or I'm trying to remember.
I don't know about that, but the footage I've seen so far looks pretty good.
I'm trying to remember. It feels like we discussed this before, and you and I both looked at, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. My wife has shown. She's got proof. All right, so...
Wicker Waka has completely rewritten the Irem M92 Mr. Core, which redid the CPU implementation. This allows for more accuracy And also a turbo feature is being added for those who want to play the games without slowdown. Now, of course, the M92 is home to In the Hunt, R-Type Leo, Lethal Thunder, also known as Thunder Blaster, and as Mystic Raiders. So lots of stuff to like there.
Unless you, well, I remember you were discouraged by playing In the Hunt on the arcade recently.
Yeah, I messed around with it for a few minutes the other day when I was watching. I think it was when I was watching Etrem's last stream, or one of his more recent streams, and I fired it up for a few minutes just because it had been a little bit, and yeah, holy cow, I just got utterly spanked.
That's an Irem game for you.
Yep.
Hidikari is apparently developing a new Mega Drive port of Kyokoko Tiger. Though no apparent details are available at this time, Hidikari had previously ported Fantasy Zone Arcade and Darius Extra to Mega Drive Harbor. Now, Darius Extra, was that the one that appeared in the Mega Drive Mini? Or is this just something that's separate?
No, the one that was in the Mega Drive Mini, it was actually a port done by M2, I believe.
I thought it was done in conjunction with M2, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's possible. This could be work from that same dev. But cool to see nonetheless. It would be nice if we had a port of Q Tiger that was maybe a bit less punishing than the one that we already got.
Fair enough.
Mikado Game Center in Europe is hosting an international event May 18th and 19th, which will include live game and demonstrations. Among these will be several STG demos, including Battle Gorega by Kamui, Doronpachi by Juju Kenobi, Doronpachi Daiojo by Chantake, Doronpachi Daiojo Black Label by Erpo, Doronpachi Daifukatsu Black Label by Jamers, Doronpachi Sai Daiojo by Kaiar, Gradius by TMF, Tetsui by Peak or Peke, and Mushi Futari Black Label by Tropical Bits, as well as Pink Sweets by Plasmo.
I think you just won a record for the most uses of the word Dodonpachi in a sentence.
Possibly.
Toho Ultimate Fatal Octopus is a fan-made Toho game from Slime Smile that released on Steam April 30th. It follows the standard vertical STG style. Now, this either could become... First of all, I know that they make so many of these things. It's good to see another just regular STG, but shout outs to the name Ultimate Fatal Octopus. That sounds like it could be the name of a Metal Gear villain, right?
Yeah.
Get rid of the Ultimate for a while and just put in Fatal Octopus. That sounds like a Metal Gear Solid villain on there. Ocelot Revolver is facing off against Fatal Octopus.
My guess is that this game is a bit of an homage to Toho Unidentified Unidentified Fantastic Object or something like that.
UFO.
And so, yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah, it's much better than Toho. Oh no. Alright, well, moving along with the...
Toho Mr. Bill edition. Oh no! There will be about 3 listeners that get that one.
Oh jeez, yeah. Oh boy, for all you Gen Xers, this is for you.
Yes. Battle Titan Rainbow has been announced from One Handed Click, set for a 2025 release date on Steam. It's a vertical shooter and RPG hybrid with a heavy anime style.
Sounds good to me. There was that one that My Life in Game was playing that was on, but it was a PS1 title. I'm trying to remember that had a very sort of like late 70s, early 80s anime style to it. I can't remember, but you're playing a tank and it flies down. It was I know what kind of meme.
Time Boken?
Yes. There you go. If ever I need to remember something, I won't even bother putting in notes. I'll just call you up. What's the name of that then?
Right.
Astronave is a shmup minigame on Steam now from developer Doug B, and takes a minimalist approach to the Gyrus formula. And Gyrus is something that you don't see used that much, or like Tempest. Outside of games called Tempest, you really don't see that used much.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that someone is revisiting that idea. The Devil Blade reboot now has a confirmed Steam release date of May 24th. And something I didn't know about this is apparently the Devil Blade games, which were Deza developed shoot-em-ups, are apparently the work of an artist who works at Vanillaware. So that's pretty cool.
Indeed. Vanillaware is known for their over-exaggerated lots of stuff, right? Because didn't they do the art for, was it Dragon's Crown?
Well, yeah, they developed Dragon's Crown.
Yeah. Where everything was over-exaggerated.
Well, yeah, it's like the game was developed in Texas.
As long as it's not Space Texas, we're okay. Den Famicom Gamer reported that the Storm Collectibles will be releasing a line of collectible figurines based upon the original Cho Aniki game. And if you thought you wanted your place to be really weird and creepy, there you go.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, could you imagine, like, people... like, look, you walk in there and somebody's got Star Wars or Marvel action figures. People are going to go, oh, okay, that's fine. Maybe a couple or something on there. You see an entire wall or something with them, and may spook some people. But you see an entire wall of Cho and Iki figures, you run. You run the heck out of there. Find a safe spot. Call the police. Call Superman. Run.
This is the shmup collectible answer to what's weirder than an apartment full of Funko Pops, and Storm Collectibles says, "Hold my beer."
Yeah. It's sort of like you just walk in to use the loo or the dunny. And ever since we ended up with it having our first keyword in there, I got to call it the dunny as well. Loo, dunny, toilet on there. You just walk in and all of a sudden there's a Cho and Iki figure that's out there with its hand stretched on like one of those controller holders, but just holding toilet paper.
Yep.
And
Legend of Protein, indeed.
Legend of Protein. Oh, jeez.
Toho Lunatic Machines is a new Toho fan game in development from 2Koioda. I'm hoping that's right. And is available on itch.io now. It is currently at version 0.6. So definitely not a complete game yet.
It's getting there. Great Caravan is a new caravan shooter from Walter Powerbright, available on itch.io as a name-your-own price title. It has monochrome pixel art style. Sometimes those ones work really well in there, where you just sort of have that liquid paper type look, right? Your Kindle, the original Kindle look, where everything is super readable, and there's only one color that can come off looking amazing.
Yep. Xenofighters R continues to see development and fixes. It is currently up to version 0.385.4.
Don't call me when it gets to 0.385.5. Namco's lesser-known shmup Fighter and Attacker is coming to arcade archives on May 15th, and we'll see release on both Switch and PS4. I never liked that title's Fighter and Attacker. It almost felt like it belonged on our Atari 2600 title, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit generic.
Either that, or it's sort of like this dollar, or as inflation now has a $1.25 store, a clone of something, right?
Right.
You end up, instead of having battleship, you just have it's called naval ships.
Yeah.
And this one here, it's just it's two Nerf guns, and they're just called fighter and attacker.
Right. The MSX game Gradius 2 will be released through the Project Egg service on Nintendo Switch. Now, keep in mind, the MSX Gradius 2 and 3, it's not Gradius Roman numeral 2, it's Gradius number 2 and Gradius number 3. These are completely different from the arcade and subsequent console releases, and so they diverge from the regular Gradius canon into kind of their own thing. So it's kind of cool that this is happening, and I'm hoping that means that eventually we get Gradius 3, number 3, and also Salamander through this service.
Yeah, those things were very interesting. Didn't you, couldn't you only access, one level for Gradius 3 if you had Gradius 2 plugged in? Some of that weird MSX stuff where it unlocked different features. I think you didn't have to beat the game, but in order to get the special ending, you had to plug Gradius 2 and 3 into the cartridge slot in the MSX, something like that.
Something like that.
Either way, it'd be nice to have people try out different things for this. MSX games, I don't think, get enough love in the modern era.
Yeah. Well, and naturally this will open up the ability for us to start looking at some of this stuff. I mean, one of the nice things once we eventually get around to covering Sylpheed, not only can we look at the Sega CD version, but Project Egg has the PC-88 version of Sylpheed out there as well. So we'll be able to, play that as alongside.
If they have a spot where you can just flip the floppy disk over and then wait 5 minutes while it loads.
I think they probably made it more quality of life than that.
Oh. Kiyodori Night Dreams Cotton reboot High Tension has been announced for PS4 and 5 and Switch. PS5 and Switch will receive a physical release. PS4 will be digital only. No screenshots have been shared yet, but new characters Macron and Willow have been announced. You sure it's Macron? It's not the French president, right?
Right, not Macron, but macaron, like
Oh, Macron.
Yeah, like a macaroon.
Yeah, Macron. And Willow have been. We're just moving on from Willows to French pastries. Let's go. Have been announced. The former will be a playable character, and latter a new foe. It is uncertain if this is an update of Cotton or Cotton 2 Boomerang in the way Cotton Reboot was an update of the original Cotton, or if this will be strictly a follow-up on the previous game, or it's considered direct sequel. This reminds me of that picture of Dave Chappelle when he's got powder on his nose. He goes, "You all got some of those Willows?"
Yeah. Now the rumblings that I've heard is that this is a direct sequel of Reboot, and
not Rock and Roll or anything.
Right, because Cotton Rock and Roll 2 has been announced and is in development, and so it's kind of cool that they're going to have multiple threads, if you will, of Cotton, pun intended, going at the same time.
Yeah, this sounds like a page out of Konami playbook, right? Next we'll have a Cotton, a sort of not Clax, but a Cotton Puyo Puyo type game, or some sort of puzzle game coming out of it. And then after that we'll have Cotton Racing, Cotton Go-Kart Racing. What do you think will be after that? You think she'll appear as a side character in a Toho game? Or maybe she'll start selling cup noodles?
Oh my. I don't know. But it's kind of cool that a franchise that was largely dead has come back with a vengeance, and
by the power of beep.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much going on. I mean, you've got Reboot, You've got Cotton Rock and Roll, aka Cotton Fantasy. You have reissues of Cotton 100% and Cotton Panorama. You've got the recent Cotton Rainbow or Rainbow Cotton update.
I'm waiting for the semi-official bootleg Cotton Bee Storm.
Oh, geez. So, I mean, it's a good time to be a Cotton fan. Really.
It is. Or a Willow fan.
Yeah.
All right. Definitely good news.
Yeah. Pretty
Give
exciting.
me the Cotton Gospel.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our shmup game of the month for April 2024. And that was Tyrian / Tyrian 2000 / Tyrian for the Game Boy Color / Tyrian for the Game Boy Advance. All things Tyrian. So, and our participants for the month were Game Engineer 112, Eat Electric Death, Desolus, Pony Trigon, Schlarp, Corkman 77, Geriatric Dramaku, and Desolus. So, Tyrian was developed by Jason Emery under the Eclipse Productions Monk Year and was published on PC by Epic Mega Games in 1995. As with many shareware titles, the first episode was available for free, with episodes 2 and 3 only available if you gave them money. The game saw a few updates during its commercial title, with a addition 4th episode. That was when it became officially Tyrian 2000, right? When they had the 4th episode.
Nope. We'll get to that.
Oh, shoot. I thought that was that time. Alright, so. Other notable shareware releases from Epic Mega Games include Jazz Jackrabbit 1 and 2, Zzzt, and Super Zzzt, Jill of the Jungle, Kilo Blaster. Epic Mega Games later rebranded as Epic Games and are well known for their Unreal and Unreal Tournament series of games, as well as the Unreal Engine used to create hundreds of successful video games for the last 20 years. I figure some people might say thousands instead of hundreds, but if you put successful, you could argue that.
Yep.
Eclipse Productions later became World Tree Games and developed Commodore Amiga games, as well as Iron Soldier series. World Tree closed its operations in 2002. Exif?
I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Okay. Exif Games published an update to Tyrian called Tyrian 2000, which brought the game forward to newer operating systems at the time and added a new 5th episode. The game also referenced Pretzel Pete, another game in development. The Exif never saw the light of the day. Pretzel Pete. Wonder if that was a platformer or what that was. It's a little hard to tell based upon that alone.
Yep.
Jason, maybe that was another one of our crazy mascot shooters, right? This is the Anti-M's STG.
Oh, jeez.
Jason Emery released Tyrian as freeware in 2004, and the graphics were made available under open license in 2007. Tyrian 2000 is free on GOG and has been for many years. Yeah, I think for the longest time it was just sort of part of when you signed up, they gave you that along with like Ultima, the Ultimate spin-offs, as well as there's a couple, Beneath the Steel Sky. I know there was 2 more, right? I don't think it was Leather Goddesses of Phobos. There was there's some sort of adventure game that was thrown in there.
Huh.
The original 1.0 and 1.1 version of the game contained episode 1 in the shareware release, and episodes 2 and 3 were available for download from the Epic Mega Games FTP server after making a purchase. Oh, FTP server. I guess you didn't have to use the dial into the BBS server.
Yep.
Version 2.0 added episode 4 to the game, as well as Super Tyrian mode, a 2-player mode, a Christmas mode which activates if you play in December, as well as new weapons and upgrades. Tyrian 2000 not only added the 5th episode, but added new ship related to the Pretzel Pete character, as well as some bug fixes in time attack mode. The CD-ROM release of the game has a new remastered soundtrack. CD soundtrack included. Open Tyrian has been in development since not long after the game was made freeware, as a source port of the original DOS version of the game to Windows and other platforms to run natively. It adds additional features such as 60 frames per second gameplay, as opposed to 30 FPS in the original, and better compatibility with modern controllers. Similarly, Open Tyrian 2000 is a source port of the Tyrian 2000 code and available on Windows for modern platforms. As we mentioned earlier, ports of the Tyrian 2000 were in development by Symmetry Entertainment to both the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. The latter was only in an early alpha stage when it was cancelled, the Game Boy Color version being much further along in development, though still in a little bit of a rough shape. As expected, the game was cut down significantly to fit the Game Boy Color hardware. The story of the game is quite possibly the most lengthy and involved of any shooting game plotline, with multiple story threads playing out across the game's multiple episodes. The game also has multiple possible endings for Episode 4 in the original, depending upon your performance and path throughout the game. A brief synopsis of the story is as follows. You are Trent Hawkins, military pilot and veteran. Retired from active service, Trent has worked as a pilot in a terraforming operation, scouting new planets to inhabit. When Trent is assigned to scout the planet Tyrian, he is contacted by his best friend, Bruce Quesadilla. I'm no longer Bruce Keselak, after being shut down by a drone. Is that Tex-Mexican reference? Before he passed, Bruce explained to Trent that an intergalactic company, MetalFRO, is responsible for his death. They terraformed Tyrian and are searching for the ore gravitium, which is specific to the manufacturing of weapons, spacecraft, and other military technologies. Bruce found out what they were doing, so they had him assassinated, and he warned Trent that he was their next target. Along the way, trying to evade Microsoft assassins, Trent is contracted by Transon Locke, Chancellor of the planet Delani, and head of GenCore Tech Alliance, which is the main competitor of Microsoft. Transon becomes the main contact for Trent and provides him with missions to undertake and help stave off Microsoft attacks and prevent a galactic war. You know, I feel like you could have, instead of Microsoft attacks, you could just put Windows updates in here. Stave off Windows updates so he doesn't have to reboot you, lose a life.
So what you're saying is all Trent needed to do was hack the registry?
Well, registry hack would be a good first step. Maybe a little group policy in your set.
The lore in this game, I know that in our Discord and throughout the shmup community, we have what I like to refer to as lore enjoyers. Those who quite like all the overblown story and background and kind of underlying lore in some of these games, particularly in things like the Gradius series, where there is a lot of peripheral lore and stuff. I don't know how much of it is canon, but there are those who
know that the stuff in the anime, right? That's certainly canon,
right? But there are those who really enjoy this stuff, and I mean, if you enjoy story in your shoot 'em ups, look no further than Tyrian, because this game has you covered and then some.
Yeah, this is almost oops, all data cubes, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I played through the story mode, I didn't even collect all the data cubes, but every data cube that I found, I read out on stream. And let me tell you, I spent a lot of time reading.
Yeah, I think that Tyrian puts a lot of effort into knowing that it's a game and showing that it's a game, but it's. I think the closest I could come up with is the Deadpool effect, right? Where it just breaks the fourth wall and sort of says wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that in the story in Tyrian, but I kind of enjoy the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows that it is overblown, and it's kind of playing into that with a wink and a nod, and it's somewhat cheeky in that regard.
Is it the fourth episode where he says, "Why do I have to see the world again and again," or something like that?
Oh yeah. I've grown rather tired of saving the universe again and again, something along those lines.
And they're like, the news reports back and saying, "Oh, don't worry, this man flying in a single ship will take care of it for us." Everyone's just grown accustomed to it.
Yeah, what was, who was it that, can't remember if it was Game Engineer or who it was that posted in the Discord something about that with that quote. Maybe it wasn't. I thought maybe it was Game Engineer, but maybe I saw it somewhere else. Anyway, but yeah, this game definitely has you covered in the lore department. And there's a lot more going on because the game has branching paths in certain spots with the story mode and secret levels and all kinds of stuff.
The only bad thing I can say about the lore is it's, at least in the first 3 episodes, it's pretty easy to miss, right? The data cubes, there's different various ways you can get a data cube, but it doesn't exactly tell you until you find out later, right? They're sort of like hidden or special objects to get these data cubes or get this lore, so it becomes pretty easy to miss one along the way and miss part of the story. I think there's one that's pretty easy to miss, but it tells you that the main hero's parents were killed by the Microsoft Corporation.
Right.
So you can miss out on a lot of the interesting backstory for the game if you didn't know that you were missing a piece of the story. Thankfully, they fixed it with episode 4.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things where it sort of is an automatic encouragement to play through the game multiple times or to go back and continue to explore the game.
Yeah, and that adds another thing that I feel I should mention here is the other modes are nice, but if you're just playing this like a regular arcade game, you're missing out on 90% of what makes this game good. Right, just playing it as you would a regular arcade SCG isn't what this game is about. This game is about the story, the zaniness of it, and going through and upgrading your ship.
Right.
And determine what works well for you, what you should do, and we'll talk more about it later below. But I'm very thankful it doesn't have the same hindrances or tendencies as Overkill.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into gameplay here. As you kind of mentioned there are 2 main game modes, the story mode and the arcade mode. In the story mode, you choose your upgrades in a shop between each stage, and there are story segments, of course, between where you can read the data cubes, either sent to you by Trent and other contacts, or some that you collect along the way. Now, some of those data cubes are just lore to flesh out the story. Others are going to be specific communiques that give you context about a particular mission or introduce you to a peripheral character. And then as you continue throughout the game, there will be additional ships to purchase as well, which will change your weapon and upgrade loadout that's available to you in the shops between levels. Arcade mode works more like a traditional arcade game where you've got a single life. All your upgrades are collected along the way by destroying certain enemies or groups of enemies or some ground targets. And powering up your weapons in the arcade mode can be done by collecting additional weapon icons and then also collecting purple orbs. And this was one of the things that was a big influence on the game from Xanac, which is referenced multiple times in Tyrian. You can bump up your weapon level by one level based on a certain number of the purple orbs, and each time you move up to a new level, then the number of orbs you need to upgrade again goes up by quite a bit.
The one thing I'll say about arcade mode that sort of just put me off to it was the way that the power-ups seem to come pretty fast and furious. with the changes there, and it can be a little hard to keep with the power up that you have. But at the same time, with things constantly changing, it makes it a little bit more of a mess than it should be. Right? It needs a little bit better balancing, where the story mode, you're going to be dealing with a particular weapon to deal with a particular stage, or you're going to be there's more purpose into what you're doing, right? You're doing more custom, where within this you could have changed your weapon like 17 times before the stage is out, at least in the arcade mode.
Yep. Your ship can be equipped with a primary and secondary weapon known as a rear weapon. Some rear weapons have more than one position or mode, allowing you to change its configuration with the press of a button or a key. I can't remember the exact name of it, but there's one weapon that is a sort of green wave, and that one in specific has two modes, where you've got one that's a forward firing and then one that is more of an outward firing, and so that gives you kind of a side shot that is useful in some spots. The ship can also be equipped with two side pods, or sidecars, I think they're called, on the left and right sides of the ship. And these pods are independent of one another on the story mode, so you can pick and choose what you want to equip on either side. But then in the arcade mode, when you pick up one, it just handles both sides. Now, some of those pods have limited ammo, and so of course that means that you can only fire them a few times before they're spent. Others will have unlimited ammo and just fire alongside your ship. But for the ones that are either limited ammo or more specific, those can be invoked with separate buttons or keys. And I think this is one of those things where when the game was developed, it was kind of around the time that the Gravis gamepad started to become a thing, and that had 4 face buttons similar to the Super Nintendo. And so the game really can be used in that manner, where you've got your primary fire button, your mode change button for your secondary weapon, and then your 2 buttons for your left and right side ships.
Yeah, the birth of the switch over from like a 1 or 2 button PC joystick to a multi-button or as you mentioned, Super Famicom or Famicom or Super Nintendo style configuration.
Exactly. There are some special ship upgrades you can pick up along the way that act as chargeable weapons or effects. When you pick one of these up, you'll see a small icon near the top left of the screen showing which upgrade you have, and then along with that, there will be a little orange bar. When the orange bar is full, you can press the fire button to engage it, or if you're holding the fire button down, you can let go of that and then press it again to fire off that special effect. And depending on what kind it is, it'll either recharge quickly and you can keep doing it, or it might take a while to recharge. And so then you can go back to kind of your normal firing or what have you until you see it recharge again. There are special limited use weapons that can be picked up in some levels, such as bombs that create a large area of effect explosion, or missiles that will create splash damage. These typically have minimal ammo and only pop up occasionally. Similar to many Western-developed shooters of their time, you only have 1 life, but your ship does not suffer from one-hit deaths like you would see in a traditional Japanese-developed shooter. Instead, you have what is essentially a 2-tiered life system. Your ship has a shield, which will deplete when you're taking hits from enemy projectiles or collisions, and then you have armor that will deplete when your shield is weakened. And of course, if too much of your armor is depleted, the game begins to sound a warning siren, and then if your armor gets down to a minimal level, that siren goes faster. Now, you can pick up replenishment armor pickups from special carrier ships that you can destroy, and then they will drop off this, what looks like kind of like a gold bar or a silver or bronze bar kind of a thing. And if you pick those up, that will refill a portion of your armor, I think depending on which color you pick up. And if your armor is already full and you see one of those carrier ships, it will allow you to overfill and actually pick up more armor than what you start with. And so you can kind of have extra protection with that. Also, in the story mode, your shield can be upgraded so that it will provide you more protection and, last longer against enemy fire and collisions. Also, like many other Western developed shooters, the game doesn't really have invincibility frames, as we mentioned. So as you take damage, really your best course of action is to just get out of the way so you can stop taking damage and then not run out of shield and armor. Similarly, your ship has inertia, which is, as we mentioned, frowned upon within the wider shooting game community. But because the game was designed around mouse controls, you can mitigate this somewhat because of the fluid and fast movement that you can achieve with a mouse. Did you use a mouse with this?
No, I actually used a Xbox One pad, which worked surprisingly well. I think I told you this on an earlier call, or at least within Discord, that when I played on the GOG copy, things became dumb-like at some point. So I think there were some problems with the over-speeding the game, so it caused some problems on there. But from playing with the X1 pad, it felt pretty well. I didn't try with a mouse because I think I still have emotional damage from Tubular Worlds.
Well, as much as I've played this game over the years, I've historically pretty much used the mouse on most everything, with the exception of there's a port of Open Tyrian, or a fork of Open Tyrian, for the PSP. And so I've actually played through the story mode of the game on PSP, and then again here a couple of years back on a modded Vita. So I decided when I was going to go in and play this month that I was going to play arcade stick. And as you kind of mentioned with the Xbox pad, actually playing with arcade stick was a better experience than I expected it to be. I would still say that playing with a mouse is the best way to play, and is certainly the intended way, but I think that works pretty well. And because of the ability to play with 4 buttons, so that you've got access to those additional functions of the side pods, that works pretty well. And I found that to be quite comfortable and reasonable to play it that way.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to. I don't, just playing a shmup with a mouse seems wrong to me. But if it worked for you, and you definitely beat the game, so maybe there's something to it.
Yeah. Well, and again, this was during a time when, because this was developed specifically for PC, and there weren't a lot of good controller options at that point for joysticks and gamepads, and it was really the Gravis gamepad was kind of the only game in town other than something like a Microsoft Sidewinder or crappy QuickShot PC joystick.
Yeah, the Sidewinder was 96 or something like that?
That might have been, so this would have been before that.
Yeah. I think that the Gravis gamepad came first, and then the Sidewinder. Because the Sidewinder had the 6-button configuration, right? Similar to what you get with the Kidney Bean or the 6-button Genesis controller. And so, yeah, I still have my Sidewinder from a long ago. I don't have my original Gravis, unfortunately. I'm sure on eBay those things are probably now going for like $100 because why not nostalgia? But
Huh.
I still have the Sidewinder. I remember that was bundled with Virtual Fighter 1. I was excited to get the PC port of Virtual Fighter 1. So that's 94, right? At least 94, maybe 95. That's post Saturn, so
Yeah, the Sidewinder looks like a horrible hybrid of the ideas that eventually led to the Duke and the prototype PS3 Boomerang controller.
surprisingly, it wasn't that bad to use. You're welcome to try it out when you stop on by, but it's more comfortable than you think it is. I mean, granted, it's not as big as the Duke. I will say that, but it's still it's not quite a chunk, but it's definitely on its way.
Sure.
I think it's probably a little bit bigger than like an X1 controller.
Oh, okay.
So, not as heavy, that's for sure. And it also, for whatever reason, if I remember correctly, it's got the 3DO daisy chain, right? Where we're going, we don't need extra controller ports. We'll just plug to the back of the controller here.
That makes sense because most PCs
Right,
at the time, the sound cards had the joystick input port, but it was only one port.
I wonder if someone's ever tried that. Like, how many can we actually... Sort of like with Lions Tech Tips did that USB where they daisy chain like 62 devices together using USB hubs. I wonder if anyone's ever tried that on there. We're going to do controller after controller after... I'm sure someone made a YouTube video about it. We have 52 controllers hooked up here.
We need LGR to make that happen for us. How many Sidewinders can you daisy chain?
And then we're going to connect them all to the 3DO and then we're also going to do the same thing with the 3DO Blaster by Creative. We're just going to throw in 3DO controllers till it's in there. Could you imagine if those things like RD RAM required terminators? You remember Rambus? That was on the N64, right? That was the reason why it required that jumper pack, because the memory requires termination. So you had to have the jumper pack, or you could put in extra module, and that was famously people who were part of the early PS4, not PlayStation 4, Pentium 4. Remember installing an RD RAM? Oh, jeez, with that stuff, and you had to have terminators in the slots that didn't have RAM in it. What a mess that was! But
yep,
yeah, that. Oh, jeez. Technology messes. And then I'm sure somebody out there is still cursing the name DivX, right?
Oh, yes.
The DVDs that destroyed themselves.
Yep. Also in the story mode, your ship has a generator that powers your shield and your weapons. The higher grade your generator, the better it can handle the load. Now, if you overload your ship with too many weapons or upgrades and a less powerful generator, your shield will not recharge while you are firing, or you may run out of energy and your fire rate may suffer. So keep that in mind as you upgrade.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I was very thankful for in Tyrian is overkill. You had to be extremely particular about what you're doing, right? If you went past a certain threshold, you were just asking... you're basically saying welcome to die, right?
Yep.
With Tyrian, you could get that micromanagement level, or you could just say, I want a bigger generator in the game. That would be fine. So the game allowed for it. It didn't put you in a certain set path where you had to min-max your way to win.
Right. Yep. Tyrian has a rank system in the sense that if you continue from an earlier episode to a later one, the game will become more difficult versus starting an episode directly. And I encountered this specifically because when I started playing arcade mode, and this is specific to arcade mode, but when playing arcade and super arcade, I was going from episode 1 to episode 2 to episode 3, and I found that by the time I got to episode 4, the game was punishingly difficult. And I thought, there's no way that I could do episode 4. And even with episode 2, you could definitely tell that the game ramped up a fair bit in difficulty. When I went back and started episode 2 by itself to see what kind of progress I could make, I found that it was a lot more approachable, assuming that I could survive a little bit into the first stage and grab a couple of weapon upgrades to get me to where I was powerful enough to actually start making some real progress. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, but yeah, definitely some rank at work within the game when you're going from episode to episode. Tyrian has an abundance of cheat codes within the game that will activate different options. Several of them will unlock secret ships to use in the Super Arcade mode. This mode is more difficult than their standard arcade mode, with more aggressive enemies and stuff, but the power-up system is simplified, where there are no more purple orbs, and you just collect the weapon icons to upgrade what you want and raise your power level. And so to access all of these modes, these are codes that you type in at the title screen, and I found that they have to be typed in all caps. And so you just hit caps lock, and then if you type the word techno at the title screen, you'll start Super Arcade mode with the experimental PQZ ship. If you type unknown at the title screen, you start with the TX Silver Cloud. If you type in Stormwind, you'll get the Stormwind Elemental ship. If you type in Stealth, you get the Ninja Star ship. If you type in Weird, you start out with the Food Ship 9, which is this giant flying carrot.
It shoots hot dogs, right?
Hot dog blaster is one of the weapons, yes. If you type in Lizard, you start with the Dragon ship, which I didn't find to be all that effective. If you type the word enemy, you start with the captured U-Fighter ship, which is one of the enemies in the first stage. That one's practically useless, so if you're a hardcore masochist challenge mode person, try that. In Tyrian 2000, if you type in the word pretzel, you'll start with the Pretzel Pete delivery truck. And then also in Tyrian 2000, if you type in Nort Ship Z, N-O-R-T Ship Z, you start with the Nort Ship Z, which is a fairly powerful ship. Did you explore the Super Arcade mode at all?
No, unfortunately, I didn't have time.
I played through the Super Arcade mode a fair bit, and I actually tried each one of these ships at least once. Definitely the Nort Ship Z and the experimental PQZ are good go-tos for the Super Arcade mode. The PQZ in particular, and I say that with the note that, as was discussed in our Discord, the weapon balance in this game is all over the map. It's very unbalanced. But if you pick up the blue weapon with the PQZ or the Nort Ship Z, you get the Zika laser. And that weapon, especially once you've powered it up a couple of times, is devastating and will melt through a lot of stuff. And so you definitely get more of that power fantasy that I was talking about before, where you feel like you're actually able to do stuff in the game and really rip through things. So that is definitely something that, if you want a better arcade mode experience, go with the PQZ and find the blue weapon to get the Zika laser, and then you'll have a much easier time and the game will be more approachable. A couple of the other secret codes that you can enter are the word destruct, which will unlock the destruct minigame, and that's a sort of Worms-like battle game. Typing the word engage at the title screen will unlock a Super Tyrian mode, and that limits your ship to a single weapon. It limits your visibility and puts this sort of headlight in front of your ship with this cone of visibility, and sets the difficulty to what's called Lord of the Game. If you hold down the scroll lock key while typing engage, then it does all of that and puts you at the suicide difficulty. The Super Tyrian mode also has its own set of fighting game-like inputs that you can do to invoke certain other weapons and options for the ship. And there's too many to kind of list out here. There are a number of other command line parameters that you can pass to the original DOS executable version to invoke certain options upon launching the game, as well as other cheats and tweaks you can do. Again, way too much to cover in a podcast like this, but there's information all over the internet. Go look it up and you'll see just how vast the amount of options is throughout the game.
So you can't type Tyrian.exe /??
You might be able to do that. I don't remember if that's possible. It's been a lot of years since I played it on a DOS setup. But, yeah, that's possible. There are some other mini games included as well. And those are as follows. Zinglan's Ale has you using a set ship against a series of increasingly difficult bouncing enemies while collecting mugs of ale and other bonus point items. The game progressively gets harder and harder and will go on forever until your ship is destroyed. And you really can rack up a pretty hefty score in this mode. But I don't believe there's actually a leaderboard for it, so it's a little bit, I won't say pointless, but a bit of an afterthought, I think. Zinglan's Squadrons is a Galaxian or Galaga-style minigame with waves of enemies that'll travel down the screen to destroy your ship. And like those games, you have to destroy all ships in a wave to move to the next level. And then Zinglan's Revenge is similar to Zinglan's Ale, but with a large ship at the top of the screen, which spawns enemies to fight and drops bonus items, and then has a shield that prevents you from destroying it. The shield can destroy you, however, if you touch it, and enemy collisions will take out your ship very quickly.
You know, if we had sort of like a shmup, you know, with someone like Xenon's Ale, where every time you touch a ship, the screen you remember playing Yoshi's Island, right? Touch fuzzy, get dizzy.
Yeah.
Imagine that every time you ran into an enemy in a shmup. It starts giving that wave on the screen there. That sounds like a good idea. Let's make that happen. We'll put that as part of our Kosoge collection for limited demand games.
There you go. Now, when I was playing during the course of the month, I unlocked Zinglan's Ale and Zinglan's Revenge. I did not see Zinglan's Squadrons, so I'm not sure what the conditions are for unlocking that specifically. But yeah, these mini games are an interesting little diversion, but not something that you're going to want to spend an inordinate amount of time with.
Yeah, these are sort of like add-on modes or just modes to mess around with.
Yeah. One other thing that I didn't put in the notes, but there are also power-up items you can get during the course of the game, usually by destroying a particular ship or group of ships that will be specific upgrades to your front and rear weapons. And they look like these little capsules that you can grab. And those are very handy because, especially during the story mode, where you would otherwise have to pay for upgrades with money that you've earned along the way, or in the regular arcade mode where the only way to upgrade your ship is through grabbing the purple orbs. Once you're sufficiently powered up, the number of orbs that you need is pretty high, and so grabbing those along the way to just instantly power up your ship is a nice find.
Agreed. All right, let's move on to the graphics. The graphics are extremely colorful. There are a lot of nice effects going on throughout the game. The look of the Graphics makes enemies stand out, and from the backgrounds, and usually makes the enemy projectiles easier to see. And there are a couple things where things sort of blended in on there, but yeah, I agree for the most part it's pretty easy to identify the shots. Enemy designs range from basic ships to and classic enemy shmup tropes to full on weird. So like disembodied flying nose, because why not? You know, it's space. Things can happen. You know, just like the intrepid voyagers of the Swine Trek will tell you, anything can happen in space.
Yep.
Thankfully, it's not like really weird. I mean, yes, it's out there, but it's not like Geiger-esque or Giger-esque horror that you get on there, or with some of the really weird stuff that you get these days, like Freedom Finger, or better to keep it kid friendly. But yeah, it's bizarre, but toned down bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's more goofy, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to put a contemporary, it's not quite Ren and Stimpy, thankfully.
Yeah, I think it's more just that the game doesn't take itself too seriously, and so there are definitely times when it throws in weird stuff that seems out of place, but somehow works in kind of the general malaise that the game has.
Yeah, I when you say goofy, I think we're probably thinking more like Parodia style, right? There's just generally goofy stuff, right? Nothing that is like Choaniki, like what in the work time fun is that?
Yeah, it's just all a little bit silly at times.
Yep. And aren't we all a little silly at times?
Yes, we are.
Why can't we be friends? No. All right. And the last thing I'll say is visual indicators that you're taking damage sometimes can't be as clear as they should be, with your ship only flashing ever so briefly when something impacts it. It's not quite to the point of overkill, where it's just sort of like, where did you learn? Where did you come to die?
Yeah.
But that is definitely definitely something that could have been improved upon a little bit. Thankfully, by the time I know you were probably playing this before I was, but playing Tyrian 2000, a lot of the rough edges have been sanded down.
Yeah, and I will say the game doesn't quite suffer from Turrican syndrome like Overkill did, where you're taking damage and you're just standing there, and you know you're not seeing any impact. At least with Tyrian, you get that little flash when you're getting hit by bullets, or because enemies and landscape can bop you around, then you get some indicator that you're taking hits. It's not just you're taking damage and then you're just gonna die in 2 seconds because you don't actually understand that you're taking damage. But it would be nice if it was a little bit more clear, you know?
Oh, yeah. Definitely, you don't get the nice flashiness.
I've always thought this game looked good. I mean, when I was playing this back on my Windows 95 computer in my college dorm room, I thought this game was gorgeous. And I still maintain it is a very good-looking game, particularly for its time, because if you compare it to a contemporary such as Raptor, Call of the Shadows, that game takes a much more subdued approach in terms of the color, much more standard military type look to the graphics, a lot less fantastical sort of presentation. That's a good looking game as well, but in a much different fashion. This one looks much more video gamey in the sense that, you know, this was kind of in the waning days of the Super Nintendo and the Genesis and the very early days of the PlayStation. And so it was kind of the height of that sort of 16-bit pixel art look before we moved on to the next generation.
The one thing that really struck me out of all of this is, by this time, I'm thinking back to, we had definitely had Wing Commander by this time, right? But I was trying to think of some of the contemporaries, like Dune 2, The Battle for Arrakis on here. I guess I have to mention Dune and Tex-Mex because I'm every episode now. But Dune 2, The Battle for Arrakis was out, and we installed the birth of the real-time strategy game, right? You could argue about Herzog was why and going back in there, but the one that really took off was Dune 2. And just we're at the start where PCs are starting to catch up to the consoles, right? Where they have the smooth scrolling. If you go back and look at Commander Keen, you didn't get that. And I think that was one of the things that really impressed me versus Overkill or versus Major Striker was just how smooth everything was. It wasn't juddery. You didn't have the background scrolling a different way. Everything, it definitely looked like it could have been done on, right? This could have been an early PlayStation game or a 3DO game, right?
Yeah.
It had been ported, so it was really nice to see things running smoothly and well, and not get sort of that scrolling judder that you're used to on early PC games. Well, I shouldn't say early because by then you had an entire decade, but still scrolling was something that the PC struggled with, where the Nintendo Entertainment System, one of its big draws, even though it was originally to bring single arcade screen stuff home, right? It was built around Donkey Kong, but it evolved in with the Super Mario Bros., and you had that built-in hardware for scrolling where the PC did not. Hence why the ID or in-demand software sent that demo for Super Mario Bros. 3 running. Is to show, hey, the PC can do this too. This is hard to do. Look at how great it is. I think the other thing that really started to show off scrolling within here was Doom, right? Doom was right around this time.
Yeah, and that was smooth as well.
And Wolfenstein. And I mean, so much of the PC really starting to take flight around this time. And people really getting a good handle on what it could do. I know that you mentioned Windows 95, but Windows 95 to me signals sort of the maturity of the MPC, right? That multimedia. When I think Windows 95, I think we sort of like the age of the FMV. And to be fair, the 3DO and the PlayStation had that as well, but this is just a little bit predating that.
Yeah,
we don't fully have full multimedia. I don't know if anyone is old enough to remember the MPC 1, MPC 2, all that stuff. Like it has to have this processor. It has to be able to have this speed as CD-ROM drive. Single slot CD-ROM drive. Oh, geez, I'm dating myself with technology here. But Rebel Assault, when that came out, I mean, that was a game changer because you couldn't do this on anything but CD-ROM. And that was sort of a proof of concept for that technology and showing what the future was. And that was right around I think that was 93, so that's right around the time that Tyrian came out as well. I mean, it's just interesting to see where we were being at a crossroads. We also had Sierra taking risks where they were putting on a full voice for stuff. I remember A Girl in the Tower was that big thing for King's Quest 6, the theme song that they had combined for it, and games starting to take on bigger budgets. Really an interesting time. I mean, LucasArts was still doing stuff for Sam & Max came out. The original Sam & Max Hit the Road came around this time, as well as Day of the Tentacle, where they both had a disc version, then they had a talkie version. I know Sierra. What was it? Was this? I think it was. This is 2 years still before Space Quest 5. But I know they had sort of like a trial with Space Quest 4 and then got a CD-ROM version. I'm trying to think of... well, the Sega CD. When the Sega CD, it was about this time too, right? about 93.
Yeah.
Because the TurboGrafx had that CD on, but I think that was late 91, definitely 92. And that didn't do much. That was more... Was Ease around that time? Oh, jeez. But the point is that there was a technological shift occurring, and this was the sort of end of the old guard, but it was very impressive to see what it could do. All right. The soundtrack for Tyrian is composed by Alexander Brandon, with some additional music by Andreas Molnar. The later CD release of Tyrian 2000 has full Redback audio tracks, though these were left out of the freeware version due to their size. The music is in LDS format. Oh yeah. Latter-day Saint. No. A little too much LDS in the 60s.
Yes, thank you, Spock.
Yep, that music is in LDS format and aka Loudness Sound System. A tracker written by Andreas Molnar was used in a handful of other DOS games. The sound effects in the game were solid, though nothing really stands out too much. I think that's sort of a bit of the problem with the game, is as you're going through, most games are sort of like screen you, warning, warning, or you get flashing lasers or morning wake-up alarm noises with in case of Odomedius. But I think that sort of struck me as odd, because everything is so nonchalant. You hear like spikes ahead, and it sort of get delivered in the tone of like a GPS system telling you what to do, or the people who've at Sega Rally, sort of expected to say right, easy ahead, left, sharp turn.
Right.
But it's delivered in a very robotic voice. That's why it sort of reminded me of that. Where did you learn to fly? From Cyberm or from the Jaguar? Jaguar. Sorry, I should call it the term what the kiddies are calling now. The Jag. So you've got the lady who looks like Sinead O'Connor, but talking about it's just very off-putting and very. It's almost like again, like a GPS is giving directions. I have expected to say, make a legal U-turn when possible.
See,
so
I'm going to offer a counterpoint.
Okay.
I actually like the computer voice because, number one, it's clear and you can understand it.
You mean it's not Northmasters?
Yeah. But number two, it makes sense because it's a computer. It's not supposed to it's not supposed to sound animated or like a real human being. It's supposed to sound like a computer. It's supposed to be kind of lifeless. But I think it works for when you're approaching a boss and it says, large enemy approaching. Or when you collect a data cube, data acquired. This sort of easygoing British voice that just sort of tells you this little bits of things here every once in a while. Spikes ahead. Those kinds of things. It works. I don't know if it's great, but for its time, it was impressive. And certainly the fact that the voices are not garbled like you would get on a Sega Genesis, or possibly downsampled like you might get on a Super Nintendo just to save space in the cartridge.
Those Thunder Force 4 voice samples are incredible. Don't you dare knock those.
Hey, I've got nostalgia for those, but, I can objectively look at those and go, yeah, maybe they're not great.
But I have to say, though, that if I want a computer voice, let's make it HAL 9000. I'm sorry, I can't let you get that upgrade, Dave.
I'm sorry, Trent. I can't upgrade that now.
Open the pod bay doors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad. It just seemed very chill compared to what it was, which, I'm not making fun of it. It just was very different I'm used to stuff blaring at me. I'm used to being assaulted by sound effects like a Michael Bay film with explosions and stuff just everywhere. Some games go too far, like Steel Vampire. If
Sure.
it sounds like it's overblown as it's coming out of my speakers before, and I've got the volume set as 1, it's a little too much. But it just feels like very Netflix and chill soundtrack, which is very different for a shmup.
Now, in terms of the actual soundtrack, though, the music, this is where I have to gush, because I really enjoy this game's soundtrack. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's just a great soundtrack. It's good music. It's fun to listen to. Some of it could be nostalgia, but I honestly think that this soundtrack, the music specifically, is quite good, and I've always really enjoyed it. So I don't know. I just really dig it, and
remind me of that Marge Simpson meme. I don't know. I just think they're neat.
Yeah, I just really enjoy the music in this game.
No, that's certainly fine to do. I don't have any nostalgia for it, but I didn't find anything wrong with it. I won't listen to it outside the game like I do with Metal Squad or something like that. But it's certainly serviceable, but again, you just won't find me humming it alone.
Sure. Well, and see, this is a situation where you will find me using this music or having this music as music and listening to it outside of the game. I mean, let me see if I can find it here. I actually have at one point I had some Tyrian music on my phone that I could use as a ringtone. Let me see if I still have it somewhere. I may not anymore. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the soundtrack, and it's something that has kind of stuck with me for all these years, and I still get songs from the game stuck in my head. I mean, I was walking out of work today, and because I knew we were going to be recording tonight, I had a song from the game going in my head, and I was whistling it on my way down the hall to get out and leave work today.
Very nice. Yeah, as I say, it's going to hit different people differently.
Absolutely.
And I don't have any nostalgia for it, but I definitely do not hate it, nor did I want to turn it off and start blasting Metal Squad.
Cool.
All right, so scoring. There is very little to scoring other than wanton enemy destruction. However, you pick up coins and gems along the way, which do count towards your score, so you want to prioritize those. In order to register a score on the leaderboard, you'll have to start an episode fresh and not continue from the previous episode. Yeah, I mean, the scoring here is pretty basic. You're not going to be dealing with like tons of routes or tons of farming on here, but nor would you expect to for this style of game.
Right. And honestly, this was still kind of during the era where complex scoring systems were not yet developed. I mean, this was right around the Dome Patch timeline and before, or about the time that Dodon Patch was coming out. So you really didn't have a lot of this in shooting games quite yet.
Yeah, I think at this point the only game that was really still interested in score aside from single screen arcade games was pinball, right? Pinball was the most complex scoring thing you could find.
Right.
Alright, so let's move on to impressions of the game. First thoughts come from Game Engineer 112. Quick tip for anyone who wants to participate. Sniff out data cubes whenever possible. They tend to contain very useful information about what's to come. You may even get some lore. Or how about lore data? Are we going to make a Star Trek The Next Generation joke somewhere in there?
Huh.
I need humor like this back in my vidya, man. I hope you enjoyed your flight. Please return your tray to the upright position and prepare for destruction. You hardly ever see the characters in this game, and they're somehow more interesting than other shmups cast. I might be running arcade mode once I'm done with the story mode. By the way, just another tip, skip the minigames. Don't think for a second that you can just milk Xylon's ale and end up filthy rich next episode. Not really a tip, just a fair disclaimer. These secret levels can get pretty creative. Later on, what continues to be funny about this game is that it looks so much like something to be on the Amiga, even if that's not what it was designed for. I also kind of wish the music caught on as close as much as the other shmups music does. I think I'll run a victory lap with the Funi Banana weapons. Why is it always the joke weapons that go the hardest? Yeah, holy smokes, there's a lot that I missed the first time around. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I forgot to mention with the graphics, so I thank you for the scenario. Is it really does look like an evolution or something that would belong on an Amiga, right?
Very much so.
I just wonder if that, by that time, when the Amiga was still going strong by 93, 94, right?
Yeah.
So somehow, if you had told me that someone would somehow find a way to interface a toaster into Amiga, I would probably believe you. Just because of the amount of crazy stuff they do for that thing.
Yep. Corkman77 joined in and said, I just tried the GOG version and it seemed okay, I guess. When you scroll the screen left or right, are the bullets supposed to be affected by the scrolling and look like a knuckleball in baseball? The answer is yes. Seems playable for me as it is. I could see how 60 Hz would be nice. This will be an interesting month with this game. Seems pretty sweet. Ha! And then later on, Corkman said, Tyrian made a new fan today. This is pretty good. I'm going through the Euroshmup mode. I tried Euroshmupping starting at episode 2. It's not possible. You are so weak. Then I realized you can keep your ship's power from episode 1 if you continue from that save file. So much better. Still, stage 1 on episode 2 definitely ramped up the difficulty from episode 1. This is one of the harder Euroshmups I've played. I'll have to try out those secret ships, but I see they are only available in arcade mode. And then Corkman said, I just finished off episode 2 of Euroshmup mode. I'm appreciating a little of the strategy of customizing your ship to help with a particular level. It's pretty fun. What isn't fun is the enemies or bosses that just try to ram you into the sides. That's the only time I struggle with this game. I think the enemies got lessons from The Rock. And then he posted in the Discord a gif of The Rock body slamming someone. I completed episode...
Cooking?
What's that?
I said, do you smell what he's cooking?
Oh, yes. I completed episode 3 of Euroshmup mode. Stupid grabby arm, electric bolt shooting claws that suck you into them. Oh, yes. They can go take a long walk off a short pier. And that is Corkman channeling some Gay Boy Guru energy right there. And then later on, I just finished episode 4. It's also pretty long, too. I thought the boss fights were where they flipped the screen so that the boss is at the bottom and you're at the top was interesting. Just finished episode 5 in Euro mode. It was pretty easy. I'm not sure if the levels were that easy, but my ship was certainly OP. I melted the faces of the bosses like a hot knife through butter. I got a 1cc on episode 1 in arcade mode. My scores should have been a lot better, but I got stuck with some bad weapons in the middle of the game and couldn't shoot stuff down. I'll give episode 2 a shot then. And then for final thoughts, Corkman said, I played this game for the first time this month and knew basically nothing about it. I played the Tyrian 2000 version on GOG. I figured I'd play the story mode to learn the game, and besides, it had been a long time since I'd played a Euro-style shmup. Got through all 5 episodes and found the most difficulty in the beginning with understanding the shield and armor system and enemies ramming into you. I realized I needed to avoid contact with enemies that drain your shield and armor very quickly. Also realized to not worry about a bullet or two hitting you because your ship's shield can absorb and take it. Once I realized these 2 things, the game became much easier. I liked the ship customization in this mode. It was fun to try different weapons and combinations that would work for the stage or make you feel more powerful and buzz through enemies like nothing. I played a little arcade mode at the end of the month, and I was able to 1cc episode 1. Played a little of episode 2 in arcade mode until I lost interest. This doesn't feel right as an arcade game to me. It's probably the slightly slippery controls and the vertical aspect ratio. Overall, I liked my time with Tyrian. I could see messing around with it again in story mode when I want something easy and breezy.
Easy, breezy, beautiful Tyrian.
Maybe you're born with it. Maybe it's Tyrian.
All right, before we start getting down the really silly rabbit hole here, Desolus says, okay, I got some time to get into this last night, and I have to say I get why Inertia gets all the hate now. It's kind of rough to get used to. Otherwise, though, the upgrade system is neat, and I like the sprite work. I dig some of the humor I've seen, too. My Zinlon, I need a drink. I cleared the first episode and made most of the way in the second one before I had to call a night. Hopefully I'll get some more time tonight. Well, yeah, thank you for joining, and I definitely agree. I think that from what's been said so far, I think that arcade mode sort of does this game a little bit of a disservice, as most of the meat is within the story mode, and you're really missing out upon the heart or why people like the game by not playing the story mode, especially when a game invests this heavily, ludicrous or otherwise, into its lore.
Yeah, I could see that. Eat Electric Death joined in and said, Tyrian is one of the quintessential Euro shmups for sure, along with, like, Jets and Guns, for better or worse. Here's my score for episode 1, played through in a couple sessions. Story mode on Open Tyrian 2000. It allowed me to register the high score despite loading a save. Didn't bother with the bonus game. Man, the lack of mercy invincibility can be a pain. Pretty much all my deaths come from getting rammed by an enemy and getting my shield and armor deleted in a nanosecond. And then later on, the first level of episode 2 is kicking my butt. So many enemies that will ram you, which, like I said, is a big problem in this game. The next level is even worse. Up to episode 4 now. In my opinion, the way the game handles damage and collisions is by far the biggest strike against it, as well as the biggest source of difficulty in the game, but in a way that doesn't feel good or intentional. It could be solved if enemy hits did more damage, but getting your armor hit gave you mercy invincibility, for example. I wonder why that was so common back then. Later on, is there any reason to loop the story mode again other than a victory lap? What's the difference between arcade and super arcade modes? Which of course we have explained. Gonna see if I can 1cc all the episodes in arcade mode, no saving, and then give super arcade a spin. I do wish these modes and ships were permanent unlockables instead of tied to cheat codes. That's something they could have changed in Open Tyrian, but opted not to. Definitely feeling that loss of power starting episode 2 fresh. Everything takes slightly too long to die, which can lead to a spiral of failure if you can't get power-ups. I might just give up trying to do arcade mode clears and move on to super arcade. It feels so bad being constantly underpowered, and the game becomes even more of a memorizer since you need to remember which enemies drop power-ups and which are the ones you might actually want. Super arcade power-up system is different, so that might help. And then later on, Super Arcade mode, Super Arcade episode 1cc. Yeah, this mode is definitely way better than regular arcade. And then Eat Electric Death followed that up with episode 2 and 3 1cc's. PQZ and Zika Laser especially is the secret to success. Got the episode 5 1cc. Episode 4 is trickier. Tyrian is many things, but well-balanced is not one of them. Tried to do a full run on Super Arcade with the PQZ ship and oof! Episodes 1 to 3 were easy peasy, but episode 4 was indeed even more brutal than before. Burned through all my remaining lives in the first level. I noticed all the enemies were much tankier and aggressive than when starting fresh. Got a new episode 1 high score out of it at least. I can definitely see why episodes 4 and 5 are considered controversial by some fans. Picking and maintaining the correct weapons and power-ups is crucial in arcade and super arcade modes. Because, as previously mentioned, the weapon balance is whack.
Alright, the next comment comes to us from Schlarp. Pre-warming by listening to the OST from GOG. I almost feel like we should read that in a Casey Kasem voice. Pony Trigon says, anyone planning on trying the secret harder difficulties? Insane, suicidal, Lord of the Game. There's codes to unlock them, I only ever got insane and suicidal to work. I got a lot of conflicting codes for LOTG. The only way I ever got into the LOTG difficulty was a very specific code that you play the arcade version on LOTG difficulty, and Euro Bullet Hell is pretty describing generously. Should also mention, since Tyrian is a DOS game, it has loads of cheat codes. Most of them just swap your ship type or other access Easter eggs and stuff though. Seriously, Suicidal and Lord of the Game are like the most 90s difficulty names ever. Next to I Have Pet Names for My Grenades and Will of Iron, Needs of Jello. Oh yes, Rise of the Triad. That game goes bonkers in many ways too. And of course the classic Can I Play Daddy? Wolfenstein and Hurt Me Plenty. Doom. Yeah, there is a lot of talk about with Tyrian, and the story mode is just the tip of the Daggerfall. I don't get to play much this month due to in real life business because I got addicted to EDF. EDF! EDF! I think it's just compulsive at this point where we have to say it when someone says that.
Yep.
So I can't say much about this absolute gem of a game, but I will say this. Despite its drawbacks, movement feels a bit off when using a mouse and a lot of momentum. It's still a pretty solid game to play, and I just sort of want to unwind for a little bit. Though I can say that, yeah, the weapon selection is a bit weirdly balanced. I mainly just played through half of episode 1. I think that's enough for me to see, to be honest. I will say, though, Tyrion's OST is still one of my favorite shmup OSTs, and since it's a DOS game, I had a lot of fun poking around and looking at all the secrets. There's a secret that unlocks another game entirely. I think it's called Apocalypse or something. If you've ever played Worms, it's basically that, but with tanks. Anyways, I'm so glad there's more shmups that take the whole buy your weapons and customize your loadout aspect. Tyrian started and expand upon it. I also probably balance a big example being Jetson guns.
And then finally, Geriatric Danmaku piped up and said, hello all. It is a bit difficult to write on the subject of Tyrian. It meets so many small details which should be awesome. DOS PC, which I have one of. Gravis Ultrasound sound card. In 1995, I spent many hours playing Tyrian and playing the soundtrack jukebox. It's really great stuff. But the actual game of Tyrian in 2024, compared to the classic Japanese greats of shmupdom, it just falls short. The greatest problem of Tyrian is we are just not powerful enough. Sure, we can get powerful with perfect play and perfect spending in the game shop, but one death and we are too weak to have any effect on the game. We tolerated this in the 1980s when shmups were new to us all. Gradius syndrome. One death and suddenly recovery is a massive challenge. I tolerated this in 1995 and 1996 with Tyrian because the music was really great and the graphics were great. But in 2024 we can play so many great shmups where we are powerful, we are strong. While playing Tyrian, I get reminded of the Star Trek Next Generation episode featuring the space race called Packlids. At the end of the episode, they accept, for the moment, we are not strong. When playing Tyrian, my feeling, start to finish, is we are not strong.
Alright, so what are your thoughts?
Well, I've mentioned before, Tyrian was a bit of an indulgent pick for me. it was an indulgent pick because April is my birth month, and I kind of wanted to do something that was a little bit out of the norm that we do, kind of going back and forth between console shmup, arcade shmup, indie PC shmup, console shmup, arcade shmup, indie PC shmup, rinse, repeat. You know, this is obviously a PC game, but it's an older PC game and a little bit of a different flavor than what we usually play. It's also a long-time favorite and a nostalgic favorite for me. So I went into the month knowing already that I liked this game and that I was going to have fun with it. What I didn't expect was that I would spend the bulk of my time in the month playing with the arcade and super arcade modes and honestly trying to 1cc and play through the game to get more out of the arcade mode. I've always really spent my time with the story mode, and kind of as you've said, that's really where the meat of the game is. But I did find myself going back and trying to get through the rest of the game, and I did. I mean, I got the 1cc on the Super Arcade mode on all 4 episodes, and was able to 1cc at least episode 1, if not episode 2, on regular arcade mode. And of course, I did play through the whole story mode, but I was surprised at how much I enjoyed going back and sort of figuring out the arcade and super arcade modes to get more out of those than I probably ever have. And so that was a nice change of pace for me to go back and approach the game in a very different way than I've done in the past. You know, I've already gushed about the soundtrack, so I won't belabor the point with that. But suffice to say, I still enjoy this game after all this time. I have an easier time now recognizing its flaws than I did in the past because I've played more shooting games that are very well designed and are much more meticulous in the way that they are designed than what Tyrian is. I think Tyrian suffers most from the devs spending so much time on the lore and the periphery around the game, and I won't say forgetting about some of the design aspects, but perhaps being in that space where arcade shoot-'em-ups had hit some level of stride by this time, but this was right before the explosion of the Manic and Danmaku shoot-'em-ups, and so it really didn't have much to pattern itself after other than the 80s and early 90s arcade shooters and a round of console STG and a lot of microcomputer games that had been developed throughout Europe. And I think the devs took more inspiration from those than perhaps was advisable, even though they took a great inspiration from Xanac. They did it more from a few elements that they included within the game and a few ideas here and there, but they didn't really go far enough with it in some ways. And so you get something that I think, looking at it objectively, has a lot of good elements in there, but they don't all mesh the way that they should. So while I have nostalgia for the game and I still love it, I can look at it more objectively now and say, it's not probably as good as I once thought it was, but it's still a game that I enjoyed despite its shortcomings.
Yeah, that's pretty well said. I think that the best thing I can say about it is I don't have nostalgia for this game. I'm aware of it, but never really played it. and coming to it and trying it out for the first time in 2024 to find that it's playable and I could get some enjoyment out of it without having to deal with all the hoops and everything else that was dealt with when Overkill, Major Striker, and Tubular Worlds made it refreshing. It's the most approachable shmup, or I should say Euro shmup of that era, at least that I have played. And the fact that the scrolling was smooth, it was pretty easy to tell what the heck was going on. The soundtrack was pretty good. The sound effects were pretty decent too. It worked out pretty well. I mean, it sort of is the a proper Amiga Euro shmup, but on a DOS computer. And right. It has the VGA graphics. It does things right, and it's also been, by the time I tried it, it's been refined, right? It's gone through. Is it perfect? No. The gameplay in it definitely has some issues, and there are some things that need to be better refined. But when you look at what is Overkill? Overkill was 92 or something like that. It's a pretty big leap that we got from here, and pretty big leap in playability too, right? There's not one set path. You can sort of put in your own path, and when you put in your own path, it can lead to some really weirdness. But that's the way it goes. I mean, look at some of the open world games that we're still struggling with today. I mean, anyone who's played any of the Fallout games, like Fallout 3, 4, or Vegas, definitely knows that you can get some interesting jank going on with those games and break them in unintentional ways. And it just seems like the developers found the concept that worked for them, enjoyed what they did, and built something up, and enjoyed playing what they had built. It's sort of a rarity in these days. It's fun to go back to when you sort of have a cottage industry. That's what Epic Mega Games was. When dealing with Apogee as well, we mentioned for Rise of the Triad, this sort of shareware of the early 90s that developed into some of these powerhouse companies. It was the rise of the PC cottage industry. And this is one of the premier titles, I would say, that come out. I can't think of anything that really has, aside from maybe a Wolfenstein 3D, that has this type of name cachet. Micro Mages, Halloween Harry, Jazz Jackrabbit a little bit, but I think Bubsy has more name cachet than Jazz Jackrabbit.
Probably.
Now, more people look more fondly at Jazz Jackrabbit than Bubsy, but a lot of this stuff, or Jill of the Jungle, most of the people who have been playing are people who grew up playing these games, right? You're going to be looking at the Gen Xers or people who were maybe some of the older millennials. It's going to be a little bit of a rarity. You're going to be looking at a little bit of an older crowd for getting nostalgia for this, but it definitely, if someone were to ask me in 2024 what Euro shmup should I play, I mean, Jets and Guns will be up there too for historical and for there, but I think that I'm playing a title that Tyrian would definitely be up on that list. It's not perfect, but it really gives a time capsule into what things are like, and it's still playable today.
Yeah, that's well said. Real briefly, let's look at the high scores. We didn't have a lot of high score stuff in the Discord, but I wanted to go ahead and highlight. I had the high score for episode 1 with 607,990 points, and for episode 2 with 351,240. And then Eat Electric Death dominated episodes 3 through 5 with 481,357 points, 394,629 points, and 334,093 points, respectively. So, what do we got coming up next?
All right. So in the month of May, we're going to be channeling Bob Marley with Ganja Blade.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the month of May, we are as well as currently in the month of May. So we are playing Ganja Blade, which I think has been the best $4.50 I've spent in a while, and accounting for inflation, what is that? That's 2 Taco Bell burritos at this point. It's cheaper than 2 Taco Bell burritos to get a month's worth of great gaming out of this. And I think Ganja Blade is one of the best STGs that I have played in a long time, at least within its class, right? Some people will find it really easy playing on normal. Some people will find it just right, but it's one of those that is well built enough that everybody could get something out of it, and at the price they're offering for it, it's a steal. Right? It's not going to be your Crimson Clover routing and stuff, but it's going to be one thing that anybody could play, and anybody could at least make some progress of. And the people who very much love Konami style music or Sunsoft style music are going to get a big kick out of.
Right.
So June, we start our summer of sashimi with the original Darius. So get ready to head back for some sushi, because we are rotating through Darius. And what is it? Darius 2, and
No, it's Darius. Original Darius, and then Darius Gaiden, and then Darius Burst.
There we go. Excellent. I am looking forward to see the sushi tray roll around as we play through. I'm certain that numerous people are going to be playing on the collections that were released. Was it also released on the Arcade Archive? I mean, the original Darius came out on so many different things.
I don't think that it has a... I don't remember if it's an Arcade Archives release or not. I don't...
Well, I know for certain that it came out on that collection.
Right. Yeah,
somebody's going to post a picture. Oh, sorry, I was going to say somebody's going to post a picture with 3 monitors set up, doing a 1-to-1 conversion.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, I know for sure that.
Maybe we just do a full projector screen on it.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know for sure that that it's on the Darius Cosmic Collection. And then, of course, there's also the PC Engine PC Engine CD version and the more recent Mega Drive Mini version that then got a physical cartridge, which I have. And so, yeah.
Was it on the... what the heck? PC Engine CD... It was on the Mega Drive, right? Then it was on the collection. I swear it's been on more than that, but oh well.
Yeah, the original
whatever way
Darius,
you can
not
play
so
it.
much.
Okay. Wasn't it on? Oh, that's what I'm thinking. Is it on like a title collection somewhere?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Watch, it's only on Xbox in Japan. That's all right. Whatever way you can play it, play it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to be playing the original Darius here at Galloping Ghost for Mark's big meetup event. So I will be probably playing very poorly and credit feeding my way through it.
That's all right. What matters is playing through it and enjoying it.
Yep.
So, with that said, and we're getting ready to kick off the summer here, I'd like to say thank you for everyone who played in the Game of the Month with us. I'd like to thank eTram88 for the logo. I'd like to thank Game Guru for producing all these interesting shirts and being able to get these back on after false copyright strikes. I'd like to thank Kogusu for the intro and outro music, everybody on the Playcast and Collector Cast, and I'd like to thank MetalFRO and especially his dogs for keeping the streams interesting.
Yes. And I would like to shout out Decilis from the Discord, who's a newer member, has been occasionally coming into my streams and hanging out, but also who just bought one of our Boss Pro Shmups Mark II merch items from the store, the fisherman's hat, which has kind of become a thing now with the Boss Pro Shmups design. We've sold several of those bucket hat style hats, which is kind of a fun little thing for us.
Excellent. Yeah, I sort of want to get one of myself, but there's a lot of stuff I need to do in order for the podcast here. But I wanted to do I recently ended up with one of those. What the heck is that name of it? Dark Matters arcade stick,
right,
for the monoprice one. And I wanted to redo the artwork so that way it's in the Shoot the Core cast.
Oh yeah,
on there. And do player 1 and player 2, the guide in, and do some of that stuff. I know that, though, that's not quite a standard size, so I was thinking maybe it may be something to do like a template and put it into something similar that a lot of people have the May Flash, maybe doing a May Flash or something like that with the logo on there. Something there. You could do the Boss Pro Shmups as well. That would be a neat design for an arcade stick.
Yep.
So, looking at doing something type of, I don't think we go as far as like water bottles or what are those called? Stanley water bottles. Stanley cups,
right.
Or dealing with actual coasters or something on there. But to be dealing with arcade sticks seems like a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, a lot of those items are available from the merch shop. There's some weird stuff that you wouldn't even think of with that. You can have our logo or the Boss Pro Shmups design on.
Please, no body pillows.
There might be.
Oh, geez, no.
I mean, if you want to cuddle up next to Golden Ogre at night.
Oh, geez, no. That's a that's a Toho. No.
At some point, I want to. My graphic design ability is next to nothing, but I should be able to come up with something that approximates a periodic table element type of thing, and I want to make the element of Tex-Mexium as a shirt.
It's delicious.
So I would like to still accomplish that at some point.
All right, thank you everybody for listening. We hope you had a good time, and we'll catch you again next month.
Yep, thanks everybody.